Blessings and a merry meet to you, my enchanted and magical angels. Willow here. So, what adventures does Willow's Magical Adventures have for you today? Are we going to stay in the comforts of my home and my den, doing magical practice, cooking, crafting, and all those exciting things? Or are we going to venture into the world? And are we going to go to the fairy realm woodlands, a place of magical, mystical, and enchanted energies? Are we going to connect with the fae, with the elementals, and with all of the energies of nature? Or are we going to stay at home and do it from the comforts of the den? Let's see. Follow me, Willow, and let's go on our new adventures. Enjoy! Whee! A merry meet, Willow here, and welcome to another Willow's Magical Adventures. So on today's series we have a new episode, meaning that this is episode 1. My new series are on our amazing, enchanted and magical fairy and fae folk. In these videos I will be learning you on my communications and my connections with the fae, how to work with them safely and use them through your magic practices, and also how you can just generally bond a relationship and make the fairies around you happy. So I do hope that you enjoy these videos, and I hope that you find them interesting and they help you to understand more about us fairy folk. So on today's video, I will be talking to you about how I became interested and connected to the fairies, or to the fae folk, the fair people, the good people. All sorts of names are acquainted to be with the fae folk. So I will give you an introduction on how I came into communication with them, and then I will talk to you in my own theories on what I believe the fairies and fae folk are to be. Then there will be a video on history about the fae folk, fairies, the good people, the fair people, also known as fair folk or good folk. The point of me doing these shows is to educate you and to help you to understand more about these intriguing and amazing little beings. In many categories, fairies are described as being mythological and not real, and legendary. But in my case, I know that this is to not be true. The fairy folk, fae folk, are very real and very much within our realm as well as theirs. And many people, like myself, are in communication and have daily experiences with them. So, what better way to do than to be educating you? I have been working and seeing the fae since I was 5 years old. So, for me, this is really big because the fairies have indicated to me that they want me to talk about their ways and who they are, and to try to help people to understand so that they can come to be more respectful and more loving towards the natural environments like nature and wildlife, so on. All of the very categories that are very important and special to the fae folk. Not only do I do these videos for education, but also to try and bring out the truth about the fae folk. In my opinion, I have been and seen many different platforms and seen many different pieces of research on fae folk, but I've come to find that a lot of these people that are writing and making scripts about the fae have not in fact had experiences or even seen a fairy. So, in my opinion, how can you really judge and make a judgment on these amazing beings if you do not know them and only go by history and past recollections of what the fairies are and are meant to be? In my opinion, being somebody that has seen the fairies from 5 years old, I would never say that I have had a negative experience with the Fae folk. But my first encounters with the Fae were very scary because I was young and seeing spirits and was very scared of spirits because I did not understand what they were at that age. There was only really two energies that I would communicate and accept, one being my nana that I didn't know was my nana at the time, and another being my energy, my protector, that was given to me through people that knew my mum. My mum had gone through an experience that was a rather challenging and scary one and decided to give up her spirituality. In doing so, she was told that she would be pregnant. She didn't believe it at the time, but then she found out she was. And she went back to her witch friends and asked for some form of protection to be done because she was worried about this energy she'd seen coming back. This is nothing to do with the Fae, this was just some other category, but it kind of gets into how I came into being who I am. So, through them giving that, I was given Aurora, which is my fire elemental, and she was rewarded and given to me by my mum's witch friends when they were a lot younger. They'd gone on to say to her that she would have a daughter or a child that would be gifted and would be able to see and be connected to the realm and would be rather special, and that she would have connections with different things that many do not believe in or see. So, through that, obviously, my mum went on with her life and didn't really illustrate to us that anything that we may have been experiencing would be real. Out of all of my siblings, I found that I was the only one that seemed to be openly minded and seeing things within my room visiting me that other people could not see. Obviously, being 5 years old and being a child, you don't have an understanding of what this is. So the only thing I had was fear and I was scared. But over time, my grandmother, that I didn't know was my grandmother at the time, who went by the name Maggie, decided to educate me and to learn me and to try to teach me to not be scared of these energies. And that she reassured me that she would never let anything get to me that is not good or of good nature. And it was the same with Aurora. Even though my first encounter of Aurora was a rather scary one as well. I just remember being a young girl and I was sitting in my room on my cot bed and I was crying and making loads of noise. And she came in and put her hand over her mouth as in to say shush. And then I just sat there looking at her like in awe. For the only time out of all of the spirits I'd come into communication with, I wasn't scared of her, just as I wasn't of my grandmother. So she stuck her hand out and we touched each other. And from that day, I had that connection with her. And she has been my guardian, my protector, and the very energy that helps me to communicate with things. And I also can see through her as she can through me. So I still have my grandmother around me as well, which very much learnt me into my witch abilities and my spiritual abilities because she was a witch herself, which I did come to find out many years later. Because when my grandmother was alive, I was a very tiny baby, so I don't remember seeing her or remember who she was. So it was only in my later life, when my mum was in contact again with her family, that I came to see a picture of my grandmother and realised that the person that Maggie was saying she was not her, in fact. It was my nan Sylvia. I come to learn that she didn't want to let on to what I was or who she was out of safety and because of my mum's past. And she didn't want to upset mum. She didn't want me to be upset. So she just stayed and kept her identity away, knowing that maybe one day I will come to find out who she is. And I did. But in these times of having troubled times and being scared of the spirits, I started to notice energies of other beings coming to my property. Being 5 years old, I often remember laying in my bed and seeing very bright fluorescent colours of golds and yellows and other colours just hanging outside my window. Remember seeing them all hovering there, but I feared them because, again, I believed and I thought that they were a spirit, like the spirits I was seeing in my room, which were people. I did think that they were that. So for a number of months, I would not entertain these beings turning up at my window, and I would hide under my quilt. I would just try not to acknowledge them. For a short period of time, they went away and they didn't come. And one night, my mum had left my window slightly open, and I'm laying in my bed and I'm just relaxed, not feeling anything. And suddenly I see these lights appear that I hadn't seen for a while, and I see them come through the window. Obviously, through doing that, I screamed and I reacted to them coming in my room. Obviously, this woke my mum up. My mum comes in, the fairies flew out the window. I didn't say that I'd seen fairies. I just said I see something in my room that come through the window. I don't want the window open. So from then on, my mum would always keep my bedroom window shut. I had a little blue and white toy box in front of the window. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I had white and pink wallpaper with like little fairy chains going around in a border. And I just remember sitting in that room every night, just staring at the window. And they would keep coming for a little while, but again, they would disappear and not come back for a while. So I started to feel more comfortable again. But my grandmother sat down and said to me that I needed to stop being scared of the energies that I was interacting with and seeing, that I was special, and that my job and duty was to be able to learn about them, to educate about them, and to be something greater when I'm older. So through listening to my grandmother and having the protection and the guidance from Aura and being so young, I just decided to be a little girl and to not be scared of these things because they wouldn't hurt me, because I know that I'd be safe. So one night, my mum come to shut the bedroom window, and I said, you don't need to shut the bedroom window. But because of the way that I'd been previously, she did that anyway. I remember sitting on my bed and going, how can they get in if I can't have the window open? And my grandmother said, well, just wait till your mum goes to bed, because you don't really sleep very much, and just open the window. But just remember to shut it after you're done. So I sit there and I wait for my mum to go into her bedroom. She always comes to check on me, so I pretended to be asleep in my bed and shut my door. And I heard her shut her bedroom door because it was right next to my room. And I got up and I sneaked over to my window and I opened it. And I got back into my bed because I was still nervous and a bit anxious, because I was going to let them in for the first time and not act the way that I would normally act. So my grandmother and my spirit guide was with me at the time when this happened, and I'm laying in my bed and I'm waiting. Now, the first night, nothing happens and nobody comes. So the next night, I decide to do the same thing. And this is when I had my first interaction with fairies. Yes, the little beings and little light energies that I was explaining being at my window were in fact fairies. So I remember opening up my window and seeing them come, and they flutter in and they stand on the windowsill, and I'm sitting there and I am like shaking, and I said, I can't do this, go out, and they left, and I shut the window. And then I felt really upset because I'd done that, because I was still scared of them. And my grandmother said to me, it's okay, you will be all right and you will get used to having them around. She goes, let them come to you again. And she goes, maybe don't open the window and just go over and have a look at them and see what you feel when you look at them. So I give it a couple of nights where I don't entertain them when they're coming to the window. And then one night, when they do turn up and they're all bright lighted and they're all fluttering near the window, I decide to get up out of the bed. And I slowly walk over towards my toy box and my window. And I kneeled onto my toy box and I looked forward and I could see these little people with wings. The first thing that tripped into my head was simply remembering Tinkerbell out of Peter Pan. And I was like, Maggie, they look like Tinkerbell. She goes, maybe they are like Tinkerbell. I said, but they're magical and they like children. And she goes, yes, they do. She goes, so don't be scared of them. They're not here to hurt you. Why don't you speak to them? So I had this cake that I'd kept and I put it on the windowsill and they come walking over towards the area where they could see the cake. And they were pointing and tapping on the window and pointing at the cake and then moving back. So I slightly opened the window and I was looking at them and I was like, looking at the cake and looking at them going, are you wanting my cake? And they nodded. And I remember them then coming in. I said, you can come in. And they came in onto the windowsill and I broke the cake in half and I put them down next to them. And they moved part of that cake over to me. I said, is this for me? And they were like, yes, you gave us a gift, so we're giving you a gift back. And I looked at my grandmother to make sure that this was okay, and Aura, and they said, yes, fine. So I eat the little bit of cake as they're eating their little bit of cake. And then the lights seemed to dim, and I could just see these little people with these wings sitting on my windowsill. I just remember sitting there and smiling and looking at them and just looking all at them all oddly going across the windowsill, just sitting in little groups. And I was like, are you Tinkerbell? And they giggled. They go, Tinkerbell is a cartoon. She is of an energy that we are, but she doesn't in fact exist. She is just a drawn up cartoon in your world. But she does represent an energy that is very real, and that is us. So yes, we are pixies, fairies, the little people with the wings. And I said, but how are you here? Because you're not meant to be real. She goes, one of the ones in this white, and I remember her having this little sort of crown, but of entwined sticks and vines and lots of flowers in her hair. She had this long white gown on and she had the most biggest wings. She goes, I am the queen of this sea lion. I said, the sea lion? The realm of the good fae. We are good. We are of light. And I was like, okay. They go, for many centuries, we've been spoke about as being mythical and not real. But there's more to the eye than you meet. There are many creatures and other things out there in this world. It's if you've got the capability to see it. And we know that you do. Now, I remember little things that they would say to me. Like, I remember standing there and looking at them and smiling when they were saying this. And I was like, when I know that you're real because you're in front of me and I know that I'm not pretending this and I know that I'm not asleep. And I just remember them sitting there and smiling and saying, you don't have to fear us. We will not hurt you. We're here to help you. I said, I'm not scared of you anymore. I actually feel comfortable for you in my presence. And for some reason, you make me feel very happy and very excited. I said, well, that's good. That means that we've got a good bond already, which is what we were looking for. And I was like, okay. They go, as we come more, we can learn you to how and why we have come to you. So for a couple of years they would just visit. They would talk to me about nature. They would talk to me about the different things that they would do, that they look after trees and plants and the universe, and that they work on different gateways and doorways to different divisions and different realms, and that their most significant place was their own realm that was known as the Shining Realm, or it can also go by the Fairyland. Um, it can go by many, many different names, which you're going to come to learn throughout this education. So remember just sitting there and just like really amazed by them and hearing all of their stories. And I would make up little stories about them and do things with them, even though they weren't made up stories, because they were things that I was doing with them. To others, it was a made up story. So I remember just always telling them stories. Them telling me things about where they come from and what they do and why they're here. They also would very much open to me about being comfortable with who I am, and that I was special and I was different. I would often, when out in the woodlands, go looking for them. I would climb trees, and I remember there being an incident when I was climbing the tree. I think I was about 7, maybe 8, and I went to step onto a branch and I fell. And I just remember feeling myself falling, but not falling. And I remember landing on this branch, but not hard. And I should have landed hard. And when I looked above, I could see them all above my head. And I was like, sat there like with my mouth open, and I smiled and I just said, "You saved me. I am grateful." And I come down off of the tree. And any other time that I would go to look for them and climb trees, I would always make sure I was careful from then on. But they did save me that day. I could have had quite a bad injury, probably broke a leg or an arm, if I'd actually fallen to the ground from how high up I was, because I was trying to get to them. Because obviously I've always been able to see them, so I can see them in the natural environments. I can see them in the woodland realms and in their realms. So as a young kid, I would follow them everywhere. And I would always be so fascinated by the things that they would show me, because even though I knew I was walking in my fields and things like that, when I see certain things, it was like I was somewhere else. It was really, really cool. Never ever felt captured, was never forced to eat their food, never been disrespected by them, and never been hurt by them. So once I started to get to an age where I was more of an understanding and I kind of understood a little bit more about me, I'd been doing research and studying and stuff at school. So I kind of come to understand a little bit more about my abilities and who I was, and that I was actually a witch. And that's why I see these sort of things. And because I was really connected to outside, I always found some of my mum's friends really fascinating, because they were witches and they would do herbs. They just never told me that. But I would always find this sort of stuff really fascinating. And I also got to see and learn little things from the fae folk the same way. This is how I come to realize that fairies were magic as well. And I remember them coming to my place one evening. Obviously, I was a lot older then, so I would always have a little area set out for them, waiting for them to turn up, have their little gifts and stuff, because I'd have been learnt this by them as I went along. And they said, "I think today we need to tell you why all those years ago we came to you. You haven't come across us by accident." And I said, "What do you mean I didn't come across you by accident?" They go, "We have been waiting and searching for you for a long time. You do know that certain fairy children can be brought into the human realm and reborn, and they are known as changelings." And I was like, they go, "That is what you are." And I said, "Changeling?" They're like, "Yes." You were fairy, but your parents had to let you go for a very good reason that we cannot say to you. You will come to find out and realise that for yourself one day. It's not down to us to tell you that. We're not allowed to reveal that. But your parents gave you up for a good reason. And it wasn't because they didn't love you. So you was reborn as a human child. And we waited for your arrival. And we first interacted with you when you was 5, because you was a child and you was open and pure-minded. And we had been watching you and following you for quite some time, and had very much come to realise that you do have the abilities that we expected you to have. So we did try to engage with you, as you know, but you were scared of us at first, but then you accepted us. And now you're at an age where you've learned and you've been educated so much by us that now it's time for us to reveal what our connections with you are. I said, okay, so I come to this world, so what am I supposed to do to help you? They go, you already do a lot of that. You do things in nature and you do little rituals, you give blessings and love, and you're open to talk to those that you know, believe and trust. But we've noticed that you've never ever spoke about us, which is to us a loyal thing. And I didn't speak about the fairies and stuff like that, because through time and being learnt by them, I come to find that they were very secret creatures, and that their identity could become very much in danger by those that don't quite believe them, and then maybe find out that they are real and do something very bad. So I always kept the fact of me having communication with the Fae very secret, the same as I did with my spirits. So they showed their honour and gratitude to how I'd been, and how I'd always been truthful and honest with them, and I'd always done what I could to keep their identity safe. So through doing this, they decided that it was time to do more work with me. So then they started to help me to tune more into what I already felt and see when I would be in nature and stuff. I would say to them that I would hear energies talking to me in nature, coming from trees, coming from plants, but I don't know if I'm imagining that. And they made it very clear to me that that wasn't my imagination, and that I, in fact, can hear and communicate with all energies of nature, even the spirits of nature. That's why you have aura. And I was like, right, okay. So they learned me how to tune into that energy. The first energy I remember being tuned in, apart from them, was doing my dedication and my opening to Mother Earth, and saying to her that I wanted to do her work and to help to like protect nature and, you know, wildlife and things like that. So I would quite often take foods and drinks down there, and I would take herbs and stuff and do little rituals. I would leave little gifts and little presents for the fairies. I would be very dedicated to my practice. At that time as well, I'd become really, really involved in my witchcraft. So my witchcraft really fell into that category as well. And I would use the energy of Mother Earth a lot, as well as using the energy of Aura and my grandmother to help and to guide me. And also my faith folk, because they were there involved with me at that time as well then. So I started to learn how to hear the voices of nature and how to communicate with them, not just by hearing them, by them speaking physically in my ear, but learning to hear them through the feeling of vibration and touch. Um, I would sit at woodlands and areas for hours and hours, just laying on the grass and just sitting there and being around the fairy energy and seeing them flying around and feeling really connected to Mother Earth, doing my little blessings and prayers for them, and doing blessings and prayers for people that I knew that are in need. So I already done a lot of what they were educating me to do already. They just needed me to open that to another level and to learn to keep myself more safer. So they learnt me about protection, and they learnt me how to keep safe. I learned how to be able to channel into my energy so that I would know when good and bad things were around me. They learnt me to open in so many ways. and it was unbelievable. And then I decided that with all of the education, the connections with the Fae, and through who they are, that I would do my best to keep that bond with them and bring the relationship to that level that one day they would trust me to be able to maybe educate other people and learn other people about them. So obviously I grew up, I become a mum, but my spirituality and who I was very much still there. But becoming a mum, as I said previously, didn't mean that my spirituality and who I was stopped. It was still very much there, and I was still very much in communication with myself. But everyday life and life of being a mother did kind of consume my time as well. But I would always have the energies of the spirits and of the fae folk around me. And I always felt that protection and that love energy from my fae folk. Never at any point, even with having new change in my life, did I ever experience anything negative like some people say about them. So obviously I had my children, and later on in life quite unnice things happened, which I don't really want to go into detail with, but things that really turned my life upside down. That was when I really, really connected to who I was and to my energies and to my fae folk, because they helped me through a lot of my grief and my pain. And they helped me to see and to believe that no matter what you face in life, you are strong enough to get through it. They had never been that energy that let me down, and they were always the energies I could rely on. But sadly, in my real life, with real people, I couldn't count on them. So having my faith folk, having my spirits and having my energies around me really helped me to get through those struggles. And that's where I really opened my heart and dedicated. I then started to do more workings with my fairy folk and learning more about nature, going out and doing more rituals and study about how they lived and things like that. And not study in a way that I went and done courses. I didn't believe in courses and stuff. I believe that if you're going to learn naturally and through experience. This is how they learned me to be. So I would often for hours just sit and watch the fairies and the other energies in their natural habitats and how they would act, and they would show me things that were important to them and why they were important to them. So over time, I decided that I wanted to get into my paranormal investigating. And when I got into my paranormal investigating, that's when things really started to make a different change and everything started to become something else. So I'm here, and I'm open at all levels. I have had all this education by these amazing creatures, and yet I would always hear negative stories about them. And so many different predictions on what they are and what they're supposed to do. None of this I'd experienced. Yes, I'm very aware that the Fae can change character, that you should never ever cross the Fae because they are very powerful and very magical creatures. I know that they can put harm and other things upon you if you cross them in the wrong way and do disrespect them as the being that they are and their realm. I know this, but this is very rare to happen unless you have done something really bad to them that dishonors them and breaks that trust between you both. So for me, when I watch and see some of these contents and what these people say about them and they've not experienced the Fae folk, I kind of find that rather dishonoring to the Fae. And I know by experiences and direct communication and being around them every day of my life that the Fae find it very disrespectful and that angers them at the views that people think of them. and how they've been educated. The Fae are very mischievous, very joyful. They do like to sometimes play pranks on people, but not the way that some of it is described. It's just simply their playful energy. They don't hurt you and they don't put evil on you. If anything, the energies of fairies from the light side, known as the sea light, do not believe in harming anything, and they believe in being true and honest within that light and that energy of who they are. They take their rules, beliefs, and their folklores very seriously, and they expect that anybody working with them to do the same. So when I've seen certain content and certain videos, or personally spoke to people that have said and spoken openly about the Fae, but have said they've never experienced them or they've never seen them, that really does get my goat up a little bit, because I think, how can you have an opinion on such an amazing being when you've never experienced them and you've never seen them at play, at work, and the things that they do? So this is kind of why I'm wanting to do these shows as well, to kind of open you to the reality of what the Fae folk really are. As I said to you, yes, they can be malicious, they can be devilish, they can be tricksters, they can play jokes and pranks on you, but none of it is meant in a negative or an evil way. It's just, as I said, their characters. And the energies of fairies from the light side are the ones that are more open to working with humans, especially spiritual humans, people that are open to nature and the universe and communicate with certain energies of nature. Spiritual people that have that belief and have abilities, these are the sort of people that they really like to communicate with, and people that like to protect the natural world and stop any badness from being done to it. They intend to like to work with people that have honor, respect, and gratitude for the natural world. Okay, they like people that are open and already in communication and in contact with their self and with energy around them. The fairies, the fae folk, the good folk, the fair folk, whatever you like to call them, very much are associated with nature, with the universe, and with all of the natural world. But they're also happy to work with the humans that accept and invite them, helping them to learn more about themselves, their paths, helping them in their magical practices, and also helping them as a person to become more confident in who they are and what they are connected to. This is the sort of thing that the Fae do. There are many different categories of Fae and many different sizes, shapes, and forms of them too. In realistic beliefs, many people pursue that the Fae are the very energies that look like Tinkerbell out of Peter Pan. Now, there are some energies that look like that and are human looking, but have funny shaped ears and very luminous eyes and the most beautiful and fairest skin, funny ears. Yes, there are energies like that, but there are many other fae folk in that realm that do not look human and look more like animals and goblins and all different categories that we would sometimes class as being negative. It's very important to know and to see that in alternative, that most places that have certain energies and connections in this realm have that sort of connection in another realm that means something completely different. So it's very important to understand that when you come into communication with the Fae, don't just expect to see these radio type Tinkerbell looking fairies all the time. Even though there are some like that, lots of them do not look that way, and to some may be quite scary looking. But as I've always made very clear to people, do not judge a book by its cover. Okay, just because they might look odd or look like they're not nice, it doesn't mean that they're not. It just simply is their character and the way that they've been formed and made. So giving them the chance is important. Now, it's really beneficial if you're already in communication with the good folk. They will always keep you on the right path, and they will keep you away from the areas you should not be entertaining, where the darker side of their companions exist. The unseen light, which are fairy folk again, but they are not of the light, and they do not bring and have good intentions. So when you're in the presence of good fairy energy, you already have that protection and that loyalty from them, just as you have to them. And they will always keep you out of harm's way and learn you how to keep out of harm's way. And through having communication with them and visiting their places and being in communication with them, you will learn the different types of feeling of energy. And you will know when you're coming into their good energy, or maybe you've come into and encountering the darker side of them. So it's just very important to just indicate that the fae folk are very much real. They are not mythological and legendary creatures that are of fairy tales and stories. They are in fact very real and very true. And here in this realm, as well as in their realm, they come into our realm to look after our trees, plants, our universe, and all of the natural world. They are here to bring a better health and a better way to our world, because let's face it, as humans, we're not very good at protecting our world, and we do many evil and bad things to our world without even realizing it. And all of these things we do affect our universe, our solar systems, and all energy that is around us. For instance, like today in our world, many things are happening that are negative and not good. And we're seeing changes in our world, in our nature, and in all things around us. Why do you think this is? You can't go on through life doing things that damages your solar system, your planets, and your world, and expect it to stay the same. Things will change so that it can rejuvenate and regrow. The Fae folk very much believe in protecting their natural worlds, meaning nature, the universe, wildlife, and all these sorts of things. They are very much associated with loving children and find children intriguing because they're pure and they are good of heart. Opening up to children at a young age means that they have more chance of that child growing into an older adult and continuing their work with them. In one instance is myself. They showed me at 5 years old, and then later on in life described to me why they were seeking me out and what I'm connected to, and also to inform me that I am in fact a fae, okay, but just in the natural world and here for very good reasons. So it's never been about that the fae do not want to communicate or connect with us. It's always been about the simple fact that there are too many things in this world that's been said about the fae, that so many people have a negative opinion on them. They believe that they're sinister and they're evil and that there's some kind of working of the devil. They believe that they're mischievous and they put plagues and curses upon lands, and they can be cruel and evil and kill human beings. Yes, some of them in the darker forms may be so, but in the light forms, no. Will they stand up for themselves if you step their line? Will they protect themselves, and will they attack you if it was for good reason? Of course they will. But is it something that they have intentions of doing? No, they would rather not, being of the light side. But there are rules and there are categories in their realm that they have to stay by and abide by. And if you are a person working with them, you have to be somebody that understands their rules and ways and respects it. And if you cross it, you have to be prepared to face your consequences. This does not result in death in things like many people have spoke. This will just be simply by them walking away from you and removing you completely from their realm so that you can never visit again. And in some cases, they'll take things from you, and maybe they'll take your ability to be able to see them or anything, things like that. Okay, this is what normally the light side would do. Only in the most worst cases, if you've done something really bad and really untoward, would you have to face the actual court of their realm, where they would be the ones that would banish you permanently and not let you be part of that anymore. And all energy of the Fae that would have been around you and worked with you would be removed. So the light Fae are not these malevolent and evil and energies that you shouldn't make contract or trust. If you're a good person and you've got an open heart and you work with only purity and goodness, they will work and be the same way. If you're going to disrespect them, dishonor them, and treat them like a amazing being that they are, and accept that they are more powerful, then you can expect the opposite. This is just a fact, and what I have come to learn through working with the Fae. So, in my opinion, and through my experiences and being having this communication with the Fae for so many years, in my opinion, they're not negative. Yes, there are certain traits of them that could seem mischievous and a bit scary to entertain, but that really isn't meant in a bad way. It just simply is their characteristics. And as long as you are kind, open, truthful, and straight with them, and you follow certain rules to do with working with the Fae, you will be completely safe. I have found that through working with the energies of the Fae, that I have had very important and positive outcomes in my life. I have felt fulfilled and more open and more connected. I have felt more energy and power in my witch work, and I have been able to be more open and more confident in my teachings and education, like the shows I'm doing today. Having the Fae in your life for good reasons brings positive outcomes, and you will notice a complete change in your life. For anyone working with the Fae, you would know that the Fae do not like to lie and cannot lie. They may manipulate words and try to change it to bring a sentence to something else they want and to bring something to their favour, but they can't in fact lie. And they expect the same from you, to be honest, open and truthful to them. There are certain things in life that you shouldn't do when working with the Fae, because it can bring them to have a greater power over you, just as they are not allowed to give certain information over to us because we can become in more knowledge of them. Even though they're happy to be open and communicate with those that are loyal and honest to them and have never gave them a reason to believe they can't be trusted, it's still important to stick by their rules and ways. So for instance, the Fae will maybe sometimes just come up with a name that can be associated to that fairy you work with and to you at that time. This is not their true name, but just in fact a name of something they love and desire and honour. So they will give those names as their fairy name to you, because giving you their true name can bring a stronger and more powerful connection of you, meaning that they could kind of be in your debt is how they look at it, even though they wouldn't be, because in our world and in being a loyal and open worker of the Fae, I would never ever cross that line, but there are some that would. So they, for that reason, give you a name that is connected to them, but it's not their true name. And this allows them to be able to have a close and connected relationship with us. In some cases, the Fae may reveal their name, but only if given consent by their higher court. This is a rare situation. And it's no different for us humans when working with our fae folk. We do not give our real names to the fae because we then give them control and power over us. And let's face it, no matter how big or small fae folk are, they are incredibly more powerful and intelligent than what we are. So giving them your full name is a no. Giving them a name maybe you use in your spiritual practice. Like, for instance, my spiritual practice name is Willow, but I've also got a name they gave me to rekindle and show that aspect of that I am connected to their realm too. So they gave me the name Ivy Willow, which is my fairy name, and Willow, which is my witch name. Willow trees are my favourite tree and something that I've been very connected to in this life, and apparently was very much connected to in my realm with the Fae. Ivy is another one that I find fascinating and beautiful, and I love the energy of, and I seem to just think it's the most stunning and beautiful plant I've ever seen. And that, in the fairy realm, was another aspect that I enjoyed and found pleasure from. So, Ivy Willow was the name that they gave to me. My true name and identity of my fairy name cannot be revealed to anybody because it would still be going against their cause. And these are things that have been given to me in secrecy and sworn to never be told. So I go by my Ivy Willow or Willow, and that's how they will come and speak to me also. Yes, we're both aware of my fairy name, and I am aware of some of my fae people's real names, but I never use those names in my workings. Other categories and things that are really important to understand is knowing that you do your research and your studying into knowing the fae. Do not just decide one day to wake up and start to work with the Fae. They can be a very complicated energy to work with if you do not understand them. And it's really important to understand their laws, their folklore, their beliefs, how they live, the different types of Fae that they are, understanding and learning about their realms, and learning about their connections with our natural world as well. All these things are really important before thinking of bringing a relationship with the Fae. Does this mean that you shouldn't talk to them? No, I'm just saying do not open and do not dedicate to them till you are fully sure that you are ready to work with them in that way. You can simply just be in a frame of opening to them. Opening meaning that you're opening your heart to them to be working with you and educating and learning you. This is not the same as dedicating. Dedicating yourself to their realm means that you're given oath to protect and to do all that they desire for you to do, and that you will stay truthful and open and honest in all that they show and teach you. Even though in the opening to them this is the same way, you never reveal anything FAIRIYS said and spoke to you about if you're not told to. The only difference is you are dedicating to them and you're giving them oath to always protect and to always do your greatest and be truthful in who they are. Okay, where in opening to them is where you're giving your opening to learning and being educated by them so you come to know them. There are two very big different factors. So simply one day, maybe sitting in your garden, you could be having a cup of tea or something, and you've got maybe a little piece of really sweet cake or a biscuit or something like that. You could just call out to them and speak to them. And, that's a way of building that relationship. And you both, as two separate entities and energies, get to know each other deeply and on a special and important connection. It's very important to understand the ways of the Fae first, understand their likes and dislikes, and understand how they are individually as beings. Even though seen in many groups and always together, they are all individual characters with many different forms and ways and importance to our realm. And that is very important to remember. And I hope that this part of this video is helping you to understand my connections with the Fae and learning you a little bit about them as well. in my opinion, don't judge them just by what you read and you see on TVs or in books or through fairy tales and stuff. Yes, some books may have some truth, but a lot of it is just hearsay and people's imaginations. In fairy tales, they're always portrayed to be these little mischievous creatures, or energies that are in fairy tale and mystical sort of films, and it doesn't really illustrate what they really are and what they are really here for. So I, in my opinion, believe that there really isn't that much education and stuff out there on truly how the fairies are. It's all by hearsay or so-called experiences that people may have had. Um, and a lot of the negative and not good spoken words of the Fae come very much from the past, a time of around medieval and Victorian time, where witches and wizards and all spiritual and magical practitioners were frowned upon and looked at as being evil, and for those reasons were killed through fire, hanging, and other frames and forms of torture. And it's no different for any other being of any other realm that is within connection to this realm. If they are come and found to be true and real, people bring a negative impact on them. And this negative impact also comes from maybe people's experiences as well. Now, I'm not saying that every person that comes into experience with the Fae is going to have a positive one. It may not be. There might be something that you stepped out of line doing, or they weren't quite sure about your energy. So it may feel a bit off and may feel a bit scary. But with time, honor, and dedication, you will build that relationship with them. Just respect their privacy, their homes, and their spaces. If at that time you both feel uncomfortable in each other's energy, just leave each other alone until you're ready to try again. It's very simple to do. Honor and respect when working with the Fae and working with each other is important in both realms, this realm and in theirs. As the Light Fae, they are very much been opened and have gave oath to never harm anything and to work with anything at a pace and a phase that is comfortable and happy by their realm. So in the next part, I am going to be giving you some education on what I believe the fairies are and some of their characteristics and energies and ways. I will also be talking to you a little bit about some of the fae folk energies you do not want to work with or kindle with. So please follow and catch me on the next part of this show, guys. And I hope that you've enjoyed the opening to who I am and how I become connected. And I hope that it's helped you to understand a little bit more. I am only really giving you short summaries of things that happened, because if I sat here and told you in full detail about every experience that I had with them when I was younger, we would be here for hours. So I'm giving you the most important and the ones that really prominently stood out and showed my first ever connections and learning who I was and why I have the Fae around me. So I will see you all soon for part 2. Hello and welcome back. Willow here again. So in this part, I've got the video off because I am showing some very pleasant pictures of some fairies and elves and a very pixie looking one. So in this part of the show, I'm going to be educating you about the fairies themselves and my experiences on what I believe that they are and how they work through my experiences and my connections with them. So let's start this show, and I hope that you enjoy, guys. Fairies are normally portrayed and spoke of as being malevolent and tricksters. They're also described as being energies that trick humans into unreasonable contracts with them. Fairies are normally spoke of quite negatively from us humans. But the truth is, most of our usual fairies are good natured and just have a very powerful and magical energy. Fairies are great lovers of nature and the wildlife. These are the places that make them the most happy. For us to work with the fairies, it starts with welcoming and inviting them into your life. You can simply call out loud to them, or you can write them a personal little note welcoming and inviting them into your life and your magical practices. Fairies, in my opinion, are beneficial to humans, and us humans are beneficial to fairies. I have very much seen this through my characteristics and workings with the Fae, that we're both very important to each other and can help each other out in certain issues and situations, especially anything relating to helping our Mother Earth and our Mother Nature. So in this video I will be talking about the types of fairies to work with and the fairies that you should not work with. So let's start this educational video about the fairies and why we magical people should have them in our lives. They are truly amazing and remarkable beings and should be someone that we all work with. So let's start this episode. What fairies to work with and why, and who are important. Hello, my magical and enchanted ones. Today I'll speak to you on why it is important as a magical practitioner to have the energy of our fairies in our everyday life and in our magical practices and our magical lives and how to keep them happy. It's very important that working with the Fae that you learn how to keep them happy by giving them certain gifts, offerings and things like that. The fairies known to be good of nature and good to work with are named such as brownies, pixies, gnomes, drakes, leprechauns. These fairies help with your natural lives and connections to nature. They help with your home and your magical practices. Fairies of these kinds are open to us for our homes and anywhere known as the natural world, such as nature and wildlife. Some of you may not have a garden to set the favourite flowers and plants of the Fae, but don't worry, house plants or having a balcony to place plants or a small allotment or any sort of form where you can form and make things to do with nature will be perfect and will help you to continue to connect to your fairy companions. And this will start you out with working with these amazing creatures and beings. Having somewhere that they can come to where they're in their natural element and natural environment is the best way to first communicate with your fae folk, and also is the best way to learn about each other's energy, truth, and beliefs. Brownies will help with home chores and even inspire you to do some home chores yourself. They can inspire you to be creative through art, cooking, and magical practices. Brownies are known as house fairies and are known to keep your home clean, abundant, and safe. They inspire you to do the same and to be true to yourself and your beliefs. The good fairies will attract beneficial insects and wildlife to help with your garden, houseplants, and other elements of the natural world. This is what they love helping you in and with in your life and your magical practices. Flowers and earth fairies like pixies and gnomes are best to attract to your gardens as they protect the trees and plants and help them grow. Garden fairies will help to keep your garden producing more growth. As mentioned, if you don't have a garden, you can do the other alternatives I mentioned to connect with your fairy companions. Being open, true, honest goes well for you when working with the fairies. Anywhere you choose to work with your fairies friends will be a positive impact in your life and your practices. They're happy anywhere there is growth and nature and their natural elements. All good fairies bring creativity and positive change to your life, in my opinion, and through what I have experienced. They bring inspiration to one's life also, helping you to believe and to walk forward in all that you are, and giving you that strength and that courage to go forward and to be truly you. They simply are an amazing energy to have in your life. They can help you with writings and journalism also. Writing down all of your experiences through any spirituality, not just with the faith, but any spirituality and energy communicate. Helping to write and journal these things down help you to grow as a spiritual practitioner. And fairies are said to be great companions that can help you with these very factors. I know for myself this to be very true. This helps to give you more inspiration in your true and magical self, which is one of the fairies' most important aspects that they wish to do when helping and working with us humans that are loyal and worthy to be worked with. Fairies can also help to work and bring your businesses to light if you have businesses to do with creativity and nature based. They're amazing to work with. Making friends with fairy companions is something very worth doing. They change your life for the better, and they can change your opportunities, your inspirations, your desires for the greater. Always remember that even though they will happily work with you, never overstep your line with the Fae and never expect too many things from them. And never ask them to help you and give you help in something to do and never repay for what they have done. Fairies are very big on you keeping trustworthy and loyal to them. And one thing that is big in their realm is always the payment. This doesn't necessarily mean having to give them really extravagant things, but just giving them some of the fixtures, offerings, and things that they love is more than enough. Your fairy companion can open your spirituality and help you to connect spiritually, opening you to your true way of life. Becoming open brings amazing and powerful magic in your life, and they open you to divine energies and guidance when working with them. So the next time you think of sitting in your garden and having a nice cup of sweet tea and a piece of cake or a biscuit, why not call out to your fairy friends and ask them to join you for a chat? This is the best way to get connected and to know and understand each other. Being outside in the most magical and is the most magical and best way to connect with your fairy companions. So the next time you do think of going out there and having a cup of tea and you've got some really sweet little delights that you're eating, just call out to them and just say, please come and join me. You're not opening to them and you're not dedicating to them. You're acknowledging their energy and you're asking their energy to come forward. Just remember that when doing this, only call for the light energy of the Fae. So just say, I call forward to the sea lion court, the fairies of the light, and I ask that you come forth because I wish to get to know your energy and who you are, because I'm thinking of possibly in the future working with you and I want to get to know you personally. That way you're given that opening to them coming to your home. Another thing that's very important to remember as well, if you are somebody that's not sure about working with the Fae or being in contact with the Fae, do not set things up such as fairy gardens, fairy houses, or fairy doors, because these are all invitations for the fairies to become part of your life. It's very important to remember that. But for those that are wanting to work with the fairies and have more understanding of the fairies, first inviting and speaking to them is the first step to getting to know your fairy companion. Another way to attract them also is to use magic or do offerings of sweet food that are baked, or use more normal foods and drinks like bread, honey, cream, milk, ale, beer, sweet liqueurs and wines, or mead. Like us, fairies need ingredients to keep their magic powerful. So using these types of offerings help the fairies make sure that any food that the fairies to make sure that any food that you put out to them are not harmful to nature or to wildlife or to pets, as the fairies love and protect these such things. Honey is the most important offering to fairies, as it can be hard for them to come to access it due to the bees protecting the honey in the natural world. They will be very grateful for the honey. It is a offering that opens the fairy's heart to working with you. They see that as an honor and respect to them. Honey is a important ingredient that keeps their magic abilities powerful and pure for our good fairies, just as the other ingredients I mentioned in this video. Other offerings such as fairy stones, charms, crystals, shiny objects such as paper pins, paper clips, little silver charms, all these sorts of things are really good gifts. Music and water and fairy homes and fairy doors are some other offerings and good things that you can give to them as also gifts. You can also place out their favourite flowers and herbs such as lavender, jasmine, thyme, rosemary, all fresh and planted in the garden will make your fairies happy. The fairies' favourite flowers for gardens are bell flowers. Any flower that comes in the shape of a bell is most definitely something the Fae are very much attracted to. And these are some of the flowers that you could use that will most definitely bring that fairy energy into your life. So the flowers can be foxgloves, lily of the valley, bells of island, fuchsia blooms, bluebells, snowdrops, daffodils, muscari, and trumpet vine. All of these flowers are very well known and very loved by the Fae, and most definitely do bring their energy and very much represents who they are as an energy. Using these herbs and these flowers will most definitely invite and intrigue your little fairy companions to come to your aid. And these sorts of things are most definitely loved by them. And they make and bring an attribute of beauty to your garden. So if you are somebody thinking about setting up a fairy garden, putting these such flowers and things into your garden probably would be a really good thing to do. I'm not saying that you have to get every single flower I've mentioned and every single herb that I have mentioned, but just getting a few of them and putting them into your garden really does go down well with the Fae. And doing this and giving these gifts will most definitely make your fairies feel very happy and appreciated by you. There are many other items loved by fairies, but I will come to learn you about these items and other flowers and plants later on in more of my educational shows that I'm doing on these beautiful and amazing creatures, our little fairy folk. It's important as someone trying to connect to fairies to spend as much time outside so you and the fairy can get to know each other deeper. Be happy and joyful. Be happy and joyful. The fairy love joyful and happy people. If you make fairy houses and doors for your garden, add their favourite things and favourite plants and herbs to make them feel at home. Statues in the shapes of fairies and gnomes are absolutely amazing to put into your gardens and to also represent that you invite the energies of them in. These are probably some of the best things to do. And this will show that you accept them and you invite them into your life and your magical purposes. It's very important to remember to attract the fairies also be nature and green friendly. This attracts the fairies to you also. The fairies love everything in nature and in the natural world. So being connected to these things are a big tick in your book from the fairies. To have them in your life, be good to Earth and Mother Nature and be the person they like and make an effort to them. Doing good to the natural world attracts the fairies. So be kind, loyal, and always warm when doing things in your garden. Don't use toxic substances or pesticides in your garden, as the fairies do not like this, and this can bring harm to them and to natural wildlife. It is also very important to remember that things like recycling and not littering is something that the Fae very much respect as well. So all of this has to be done for you to have great honour and respect from the Fae. They do not like any manipulation or evenness or bad done to their natural worlds and places that they look after. So please bear this in mind, guys. If you have gardens and sometimes you like to entertain your friends when they're coming round, it's very important to make sure that you leave a letter or you speak out verbally and loud to the Fae, instructing them that you have visitors coming. Because visitors to Fae are troublesome for the very reasons that they are quite shy creatures and quite secret, and they don't really like to be around the energy of people that they do not know. They would prefer to only be in the energies of those that they've chosen to work with and trust. So always remember that if you have some people coming round and you have friends coming to spend time with you and you want to be out in the garden, just forewarn the faith folk before they turn up so that they know and they can keep themselves safe. This is also a strategy you should do when you're thinking of cutting anything or taking any plants away or having to cut down a tree or a bush. Always inform, or even moving their homes and things. It's always important to inform or leave a message to the Fae so they know of your intentions and your work. The Fae are very secret and very shy folk, and they do not like to be disturbed. Certainly not when they do not know what's going to be happening. So always have that loyal and openness to them and be respectful of their living, their habitats, and their beliefs and their folklore. All of this very much represents that. So always make sure that you show that honour. They are literally an energy that are only working with you. So it's always very important to bring out that honour and respect by understanding their rules and their laws and their beliefs and going by that. Okay, even if you've not yet dedicated or opened fully to them, it's still very important to follow and to choose those laws and to understand them. As I've said to you previously in this video, The Fae are not just some sort of energy you suddenly just start to want to work with. You have really got to put your time, courage, studying, and wanting to know about them at play. This could take weeks, months, or maybe even a year to understand everything about them. But at least then you will know that when you come to communicate with your Fae and open to your Fae, that you will know everything that you possibly need to know to keep your Fae on a happy place. Because even though the Fae that I talk of at this moment are the Fae of light, do not misunderstand them and do not misjudge them. They can be just as bad and just as prominent as their darker companions if crossed the wrong way. So always remember to be respectful and to be open and to be truthful to the Fae at all times, and to respect and to follow their ways of living and their ways they live in their habitats. So now I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the Fae that I think you should not be associating with. Now, I have had little interactions with them by seeing them, but I have not had anything physically done, because luckily for me, I have always had the energy of the light Fae around me. So I have not had anything negative happen, but I have been able to see some of these energies, and I have been educated and learnt by the Fae about their companions of the darker side and what they can be like. So it's really important to me to make sure that I do educate you guys about this side of the Fae as well, because as we all know, in any type of energy, where there is light, there's always going to be a form of the darkness. So some of the fairies to not work with or invite in your life and magical work are fairy energies of the darker side, known as ugots, boggles, padfoot, redcaps, hobgoblins, springans, kelpies, banshees. These types of fairies are vengeful, dangerous, and spiteful. The other dangerous fairy types are also trolls, said to eat humans, and also giants do the same thing. Believe it or not, you would probably think that trolls and giants are not associated as part of the Fey realm, but they are part of the Fey realm and are known to be in the darker side of it, known as the Unseelie, which is the court and places of the dark and negative energies of the Fey. This doesn't specifically mean that they are evil or bad. It just means they do not simply like human beings. They don't want to work with human beings, and they simply just want to stay within their realms. And if they are taking interest in certain human beings, it's never going to be for a good reason, and it's because of something that you've done or an energy that you give off that is not good. This would normally be why these sorts of energies would try to attract to you. Maybe they see something in you that would be beneficial to them, or because you've done bad and they've seen it, even though they are not for the light, they are still for the natural worlds. And if you are seen to do things that disturb the natural worlds and things that they are connected of, this can also bring their vengeful energy through and connecting it to you. So it's very important to always make sure that, again, you do your research and studying into both forms of these fairies, the Seelie and the Unseelie courts. It's very important that you understand the different effects and ways that these fairies have and how they can be completely different. With the light, they are of goodness, light, and holiness, where with the Seelie, they are unholy and ungood. In most majority of times, the darker side of Fae will leave you alone and not entertain you. But some of you, if you've got needs or traits they do not like, they will try to interact with you. They are known to be vengeful and spiteful and tricksting to human beings. They will try to portray themselves as being kind or being nice or being an animal, a human, or a nice fairy and energy that you would normally work with to try to captivate you in. But normally you can have telltale signs because you just would feel off in that area, something doesn't feel right, and something about the way that they looks different to your light fairies that you are used to. So when you get any of these gut feelings and something does not feel right, do not entertain it and do not enter into it. They are very much about tricksing you and pulling you in so that they can captivate you and enslave you for their entertainment and their purposes only. Normally, when doing this and being taken by the darker side of the realms, it means that you do not return and you become their slave and become their entertainer for life. This is also known to be done in the light realm as well, but I have not heard or seen many negative characteristics and experiences from people that have met the light realm. The only simple things that might be similar is if you eat food in their realms, it will probably make you not like your food here in our human world. So in any shape or form, whether what realm you're going into, do not eat their fairy food. Because in their realms, they have the power and the energy over you. And it's really important to understand as well that so many people have had the portrait that fairy energy are tiny, small little creatures with wings. Well, I can just tell you that yes, there are small fairies with wings and there are small fairies without wings, and that there are other sorts of fairies around you as well. Some of them being large and being of human size or bigger. There are many shapes, forms, and sizes of fairies in the dark realm and in the light realm. So do not get yourself misunderstood by that. They also have different appearances, where some may look very human-like, others will look very much like animals, goblins, and other sorts of creatures that we would class as being mystical or of the strange. Fairies do not all look human. It's very important to understand that when going into places and areas where you feel dark and very low energy is most definitely probably a place where the darker side of the fairies consume and live. So staying away from these areas are very important. And it's very important that when coming to understand, educate and learn and be taught by the fairies, that you learn these such things on how to be able to understand the difference between the feelings of realms and energies. Through working with them closely and deeply, you will come to learn what you should be near and what you should not be. It is said that when coming into these dark energies, it's one of the best ways to be able to rid of them is by using iron. But I will strongly clarify to you, do not remove negative energy with iron in the presence of the good fae. Any iron is dangerous and can mean death to all types of fae, not just the dark. So always remember that when doing any energy where you may feel something negative is around you, or maybe a negative energy of the fae realm has followed you, always remember to instruct and tell your fae folk of the good side that you are doing so, so that they can be out of the way and be in safety. I would normally recommend that when doing this, move away from your property and your garden and do it in a place that is not right near your property. The negative energy that is trying to consume you and capture you will follow you. So take them away from your special and secret places and do it so that there is no harm to you or to the light fae. Be careful when buying certain jewelries as well. Make sure that there isn't a lot of iron capacity in your jewelry. Any form of iron can be very dangerous to the fae, even if not being used for repelling or banishing. So just be mindful of that. Being the unseen eye core means that these darker fairies are very much for bringing pain, hate, attacks, and sometimes even resulting in death, depending on the sorts of fey energy of the dark side you have come into communication with. These are normally in really extreme situations, and it's not very heard of. But the more sinister energy of the Fae to be aware of is when they're doing their tricks and they're doing their nasty representations up on you, or maybe they could try and put curses or hexes and things on you as well. They will sometimes try to interfere with things that you're doing well in, trying to take that away from you. The problem is with the unsea Lycal, they do not want humans to achieve anything, and they don't want humans to be accepted or be part of their realm. They don't see us as being worthy or loyal, which in some categories and cases I can see why they're like that. But the fact is that these energies are like that to any type of human, not just unspiritual ones. They will do the same to you as a spiritual practitioner as well. They just simply do not want to work with you or entertain you, and if they do, it's not for a good reason. The unsea Lycals are very well known and notorious for doing their wars, battles, and attacks on the human types. And by trying to get their own way into the realms, they will try to bewitch you in different ways or enchant you to be able to become connected to them. This is why I'm telling you to be very aware of them, because they can portray themselves as being kind and good, because they can shapeshift just like their light companions can, and they can make themselves look different and appealing to you. So always be wary of any new energy of the Fae that you come into communication with, especially those that maybe you have not met or seen before. It's very important to also remind you that when I say about communicating with Fae, I'm not saying that you necessarily have to be able to see them, but even being able to pick up on the energy around you and the feelings that they give off at the times, and any visions or sights or words or sentences or anything that comes to you will be very apparent and very important, because these will be factors that they will use. Fairies, even though they are known to be able to speak to you over normally as what you would do to another human, fairies also do like to talk to you telepathically. So taking notice of what you see, feel, and you hear from the inner of you is very important, and will more than likely be the way that the fairies will try to speak to you. The fairies normally only really open and speak to you face to face through the language and the vocal vibration that we would do to each other, as I'm doing now, when they have really got to know you and they have come to realize that you can be trusted and that you're worthy to be worked with. It's very important to know that when you are working with the Fae, especially the light side, if you are accepted into their realms and they accept you to be a certain way and to be open about them and to educate, this is a big thing, and this is an honor and a privilege. This means that you have worked to the depths that has made the Fae happy, that you have never crossed their paths in the wrong way, and that you have always been honest, loyal, and protective of them, showing your true dedication always. Another factor that is very important to them is when you have been working for them for a number of years, thinking about opening and dedicating to them would be important too. If you are somebody that has a fascination with the Fae folk but don't want to work with the Fae folk, then don't call out to them, do not set fairy homes and fairy doors up, and do not instruct that you're wanting them in your life. Because once you do that, it's hard to remove them. And it shouldn't be something that you do, because they do not take this lightly. They take it as a great offence and a great disrespect. So if you are somebody that just likes to learn of the education of fairies, then simply keep watching the videos and doing your book readings and stuff that you would do, but simply do not call out to them, just out of respect and honour to them. Only do these things like setting homes, doors, and being open and calling to them if you are deeply understood of them and you know that you want to work with them. If you are somebody that's a spiritual practitioner and has had energies of Fae around you for a long time, and you have understanding of what Fae are, then simply just start to open up to them more and allow them in your life more to do your workings and practices if this is what you wish to do. The Fae folk will very much work with you happily and comfortably, but only if there is love, honour and respect to them. If you are good to them, they are good to you. As I have said to you in many ways in this video today, I have never had a negative and bad experience with the Fae folk, and I have been so much more better touched in life and in my spirituality and in all that I am by having them in my life along with other energies. The Fae folk are somebody that I am very fond and feel very strongly about and am very protective of. I am also very protective and very loving towards the natural worlds that they love and are part of, and feel very much part of those worlds too. I also have understanding and insight that I am a changeling, once fairy, that was brought into the human world. So I have an understanding, and I may have slightly different abilities to you just because of those links. If you are somebody that's just started to open up to working with the fairies, and maybe you've got fairy ornaments and stuff around, just talking to them and getting to know their energy and characteristics and watching educational videos and doing work and studying will really help you to open. The best way to communicate and to educate with the fae that you are wanting to work with is by simply communicating with them themselves. Books, videos can be very well, but they don't give you the true information and open resources to what the fae folk really are. Actually working with them themselves and learning their characteristics and ways of life is the best way to really truly understand your fae companion. So shortly, I'm going to be showing you a video on the educational side of the Fae folk. Now this video, in my opinion, is not all to what I believe the Fae to be, but this just simply shows a characteristic of what other people's beliefs are, and even the beliefs of those that have not in fact communicated or had an experience with them, but they're kind of hearsay and wording on what they have read, researched and seen. So in this video, there are truth and facts that are said to be part of the Fae realm and important for us as the humans to know about the Fae realm. And there are aspects in this video that I believe are merely just people's opinions that haven't had experiences. And then obviously there are stuff in there that has been written and I speak of that is to do with me and my experiences. So it is a bit of a mix and match, this video, but really the video just indicates and shows to you the different beliefs and ways that people see the Fae, and it also helps you to see and understand that really to be able to judge such amazing energies, have the communication. I don't mean by you have to see them, I mean you can feel them and pick up on their energies. You'll know when they're around. You may get messages, visions, as I've said before, in the mind of things that they need or want or like. They will do this with your magic too, helping you to make certain spells, potions and other things as well if you ask them. So it's very important to be open to all of this, but to also remember that you need to be dedicated to them to be able to do this, and that you don't have to be able to see them to know that they're around and to know what they want. It's all about trusting and believing in your spiritual self. We all have different abilities and ways of communicating and connecting with energy, and we're all individually different, just as the Fae are. They're all individually characterized and different. They all have quirky different personalities and ways that they work and they are. And they all have different beliefs, even though they do follow the strict rules of their realm. So understanding and learning and getting to know them on a personal level is very important. No fairy, just like any human, are the same. So really, really try to understand them and start by just simply making a nice drink of sweet tea and putting a bit of cake and biscuit out there and just inviting them to just come and have a general talk with you, and just let them know that you are interested in maybe working with them in the future, but you're wanting to get to know their energy. Other things that are very important to remember with the Fae is never to say thank you and never to say sorry. These both, in fairies' eyes, look like debit to them. If you say sorry or you say thank you to them, then you're in debit to them, in their opinion. So whenever you have had something done nicely by the Fae, always remember to acknowledge it, but in a different way. So instead of saying thank you, just say, I appreciate all that you have done and given to me, and I cherish this, and I give you love and honor. That way, you're not saying thank you to them, but you are acknowledging their kindness and their gratitude. If you do something or you step out of line, never say sorry to them. Simply come out with something like, I acknowledge my mistake and I'm here to put what I've done wrong right with you, my fairy friends. I ask that you come forward and that we forget this time. And I give you these offerings, and put them an offering and something shiny out for a gift as well. And normally the Fae will be okay with you. Obviously, this does depend on what you've done. If you've done something a little bit more badder, then maybe they will want a little bit more from you. So that instead of you doing just like a bit of cake and a drink and putting a little charm out there, maybe they want like a crystal and something else as well. Or they want you to do a certain thing for nature that they need help on, and instead of them asking you, it's something that you would have to do. You know that there are different rules and different ways for things, but most of the Fae, when you step out of line, understand that we have issues and problems and we make mistakes, and they will normally be quite forgiving to you as long as you show that you know you've made that mistake. But again, as I said, do not say thank you and do not say sorry. They take that as a debit to them, and they also find that quite offensive because it can also mean that they're in debit to you. And I'm telling you that the Fae are never in debit to any human, and they don't have to work with us if they choose not to. They are very adapted creatures and very fond of their natural worlds, and they most definitely do not need education of other people. They are very wise and full of wisdom, and they don't need us, really, even though they would like to work with us and we can be beneficial in some ways. The Fae can get by and do what they do without us. So always remember that having them in your life is more important than you being in theirs, even though mutual understanding and respect with each other is equal. The fairy folk are truly amazing beings if you stay on the right side of them and you stay away from the darker ones. So now moving on to the fairy video. Merry meet and welcome back. Willow here. So here is the video up and ready for me to play. As I did say to you in the video previously, this video has got a lot of opinions of other people and the opinion of myself. I do not necessarily believe or follow all that is done in this video, but I do think that it's very important to point out to those that are being educated and wanting to learn about the Fae on just how much negative impact or miseducated information can make us go wrong in our practices. That's why I say it's very important to make your own judgment about the Fae folk and work with them in yours and their personal and deep connection. The best teacher and the best way to know the Fae is to be working with the Fae themselves, okay? Unless some of these people have been people that have had experiences and worked with the Fae for many years, it's going to be very difficult to be able to really follow the judgment and the sayings of these people when they have in fact not had these sort of experiences. This is something I feel very strongly about, and I believe that you should only have an opinion on such creatures, whether it's a fairy, dragon, spirit, or anything, if you've actually had experiences or you have worked hard for a long time to understand about it. The thing is that, and what I have come to find out about the fairy folk, is that all of the information and stuff put out there is simply based on imagination and storytellings of the past. There is nothing really there that is concrete evidence of their existence and of people communicating with them. I can honestly and happily say that I have evidence that proves with my connections of the Fae, and they have been seen through videos, and I have had slight little pictures that I have took from videos I've caught of them. And I also see, communicate and connect with them, and have done since I was 5. When I talk about people connecting with them, I don't mean just by them seeing them, but they've had connection through feeling and through working with other elements of nature and feeling their energies around, having some understanding of the natural world and the habitats of other creatures. If you are somebody of that level and way, then communicating with the fairy is just fine, because you're going to open up and learn how to be around them. For some of you, you probably already experienced and see Fae, so you're already one step closer to doing so. But I'm talking about those that seek out that they're professional because they have took courses and they've took workings and they have wrote books, but in fact have never ever actually experienced the Fae in any form or way. How can you have a judgment on such magical energies without any experiences? A book and education and lessons are very well and fine, but they do not give illustration of the true forms and true characteristics and ways of the Fae. The only way to truly be able to do that is to be connected to them. So here is the video, guys. Take your opinion and your view on what you think of this video. As I have said to you, I do not agree in everything that is said in here, and there will be parts through the video where I may rephrase it and say my little bit in it as well. But I do really want you to watch this video just to show on how easy and how quickly people can be drawn in by information and things that maybe are not quite how it seems, and where these people maybe are not as educated or understanding of these creatures as they make out. As I said to you, some of the information in this video I agree in, and some of it I do not. And I've done that video for that very reason, so that you can understand why it's important to make your own judgments and have your own education and learning with the Fae themselves. So let's start the video. Hello and welcome to another educational show for my channel. I am Willow, and on today's topic we are going to be learning about the Fae. So who are the Fae is the heading of the show. So I'm going to be talking to you and giving you information and some folklore about the Fae and different types of Fae and how they're known in different ways. So I hope that you do find this video interesting, and it has took a lot of prepping and putting together. I will have my camera off when doing this, and we'll have some very beautiful pictures up of myself done as a fairy. So I hope that you do find this video interesting and it helps you to understand and learn a little bit more about the Fae and who they are and what they represent. So first, I just want to say that all that I speak to you about is through my own experiences and my opinion. This is not the opinion of anybody else. Anybody to remember that everybody's experience with them is going to be different. This is what work in our world and in their realm and the different types. So I hope that this video is educational to you and helps you to understand them a little bit more, as I am somebody that works with the Fae and have done for a long time, and I do really think that they're amazing in your spiritual practice. With me being a witch, I do use the Fae for spells such as for nature or for certain enlightenment guys. Also, if you are thinking of going into working with the Fae always expect a payment back. So giving them payments through different types of food they like fruits, nuts, berries. They like sweet food. They like juices, water, you know, and putting out really pretty things that they like. They would like anything shiny like jewelry or charms, beautiful shiny crystals, anything like that they like. So always remember to show your love and respect to the Fae, and always leave them an offering and a gift for when they help you, because they do expect payment and they take a lot of offense to anybody that oversteps that line. So I thought I would just warn you about that before I start. So let's get on with the show. I do hope that you're all well, and lots of love, light and blessings to you all, and it's really you enjoy it, everybody. Bless be. So the first part, so first I'm going to ask you, have you ever taken a walk in the woods but can't stop looking behind you? Did you feel like somewhere something was watching you? Did it seem like the woods were speaking to you? The Fae folk, also known as the fair folk or the good folk, are presented in many areas. You've probably pictured a gorgeous magical wood area when you think of the fairies, but the truth of the reality is they can live in a simple black backyard or city park. They can be anywhere that has greenery and places to This is all my information at the minute, guys, just so you know. The most important question about the Fae folk is, who are the Fae folk? The Fae folk, also known as the good folk, are fairies and fairies. They come from the other world. Within the other world, there are many different factions and political parties, and there are many types of fairies and creatures. Even though you probably picture a fairy as a small angelic being with wings, in reality, the fae folk are comprised of many different creatures. There is no one specific type of fairy. There are many, many types, guys, and I hope that you do realise that. There are many accounts from many witches mentioning pixies, elves, kelps, fairy horses, fairy dogs, and much more. Some beings in the other world are so different that we have no human name of them. We certainly the other world. This information, the fairies that you hear about the most in witchcraft and in folklore or in spiritual communities are pixies, elves, and house fairies, also known as brownies. Most all this information is true and is from my knowledge, guys, at the minute. These are the types of fae folk that most commonly come into contact with us humans. I have some brownies that I work with a lot. These fae folk seem to move with human population they're attracted to. For example, in North America, there are some fae folk indigenous to the area, such as those associated with the Cherokee Nation. But there are also Scottish folklore, Irish folklore, and Germanic folklore, and more who migrate. Almost every area of the world has groups of fae folk who are indigenous to the no set way that a fairy looks. The word fairy was first used over 700 years ago in the English language, but the words elf, goblin, and imp were often substitutes for fairy. There was no true definition of what constitutes a type of garden fae folk, while elves are well known in Iceland and colder climates. So as I said to you, I work with the brownies, and I also do have a couple of pixies that hang around in my garden as well that I communicate and work with as well, guys. And they are really, really beautiful creatures to work with and stunning and look more of the human types. Fairies. But again, do not misunderstand their sizes and their characters. They are very powerful creatures, and they don't take lightly to being disrespected and treated wrongly. And if you don't keep to your promises that you give to them, things can happen. But not things. Of course, this is just really, a general rule. There are many things to learn you fae folk that you may discover in your area. The type of fae you interact with depends totally on where you live, and that's very true. Every fae folk is going to be different in different climates and different countries and towns, because they have to be able to adapt with the way of living in our countries. So they are all very, very different, and they all very much work differently as well. In these videos, I'm giving my opinions and opinions of others, guys. If you end up working with a specific group of fairies who abide by certain culture rules, there are still many other types out there who act totally different. And I haven't personally had experiences with all of the types of fae folk. As you start working with them and going forward, you will find that maybe you will be introduced more to other energies of fae. And obviously your guides of that place will also guide you in the right directions for the right energies to work with when it comes to the Fae as well. Because obviously, as we know, there are good and bad in everything. It's completely impossible to be able to know every single type of Fae folk that there is out there. There are hundreds and hundreds of them, and not all of them come to light and show themselves to us. So we don't really know very much about them. When it comes to the nomenclature, the folklore or the Fae folk seem to symbolise all creatures of the other world, as does the Fae or the good people or good neighbours, which are all names that they can be associated with. Fairy pop culture seems to refer to our idolised version of Tinkerbell the pixie. In fact, when we heard the word fairy, we often picture a pixie without realising it. For the purpose of learning the word fairy or fairy, both spellings are known and now are used interchangeably, refers to one individual creature, although I don't recommend calling these creatures by the word fairy or the fairface. They most likely and most commonly like to be called the good neighbours or good people or the fae folk or the fair folk. Okay, these are the sorts of names that they prefer you to refer to.
They're all right with you if you've had a
So I
very
wouldn't,
long relationship.
in fact, go over to them and just call them fairies or their face
when you're
to their
just starting
faces
out.
or anything like that. Normally, a good neighbour or good people or forest folk, things like that, they really like to be called. Another question that I've quite commonly heard is, do humans worship fairies? Unlike our practices with gods and goddesses, witches don't worship fairies. The fae folk are beings of the other world that you can choose to develop a relationship with. But this relationship should be a give and take rather than the sort of bond we develop with our own deities and energies that we work with in our crafts, okay? They are completely different. Humans don't rule over the fae folk. Hundreds of years ago, peasants believed that humans were above the fae, but yet they were simultaneously afraid of them. We, as well as witches, we believe and find that it is better to treat fairies as equal but different from us, meaning treat them equal, treat them the way that you would expect your loved ones or yourself to be treated, but also acknowledge that they are different from you. They live a different way, so you in fact respect their ways of living and you learn about how they are as the small beings that they are as well. The human kingdom is no way a ruler of the fae folk because they can exist independently without us. In fact, they don't need us for many things, although some fairies enjoy forming relationships with us humans.
This is very true.
Okay? Most definitely the ones that are magical, spiritual, and open, they like to work with as well. Respect is super important when it comes to working with fairies because of this equal relationship, in contrast with spirits or ghosts, who we sometimes ask for help to release trauma or ask for favours or guidance from. Fairies are neither there to support us or to ask for help from us. They're simply part of their own world. Where do fairies live? Most fairy folk and fairies live in the other world. Not much is known about the other world besides the fact
Also
that
known
it
as
exists
Avalon.
separate from our dimension or plane. Very magical looking, very beautiful, not like our Earth plane, definitely not.
Fairyland. The
Legends
Shining
say
Land.
that the other world is rather close to our world. It's almost as though we live beside each other. Fair, and we live with fairies, but we're in a slight different dimension. We are still close enough to interact. In Old Island, legend said that fairies live on the plane just above us, which is very true. They are just above us, but it still seems as if they are in our nature place, and they can come in and out of that as well. You'll notice certain portals and doorways that, as you get communicate with them and get to know them, that they go in and out of, which brings them from their other world into ours. Okay, guys. So it's really important that you learn about all of these and their folklore and all these sorts of things if you're thinking of working with them. Fairies use glamours to affect when what we can see. Typically, they have to hide themselves from us because our worlds are so close. So they will cloak themselves. They have a special hiding gleam that is known as a glamours,
A glamour.
okay, which
Yep.
is an effect that stops us from being able to typically see the Fae when they're moving around in their realm because they're so close to ours. But sometimes they can accidentally get seen. Some Fae folk live in nature as we generally assume, but others live in mines, in the sea, or even in cities. There are so many different kinds of Fae. Their living arrangements are just as vast and varied as they are.
This is very true.
Fae can also be seasonal creatures. Some Fae are active all year round, while others are specific to a season and rest in between. For example, the Selly court tends to be most active in spring and summer, while the Unselly court is more active in fall and winter. I will say I have found that the other world tends to have a wild quality that we don't compose as humans. We are more cautious and afraid. We have distinct human emotions, but these types of feelings aren't always present in the other world. The Fae folk I've found don't always understand things like empathy, sadness, or love in the same way as what we do.
No, they kind of have to
But
get to know
however,
to us and
this
build
also
that.
depends on the individual fairy that you're going to be working with. Many of the Fae folk are quiet, open, and understanding to us once they get to know us personally. So there are a lot of them that will work out there and will learn your emotions. The more that you work with them, the more that you grow your relationship, the more you become understanding of each other. And obviously, like I said, the ones like your pixies and your brownies are more than likely going to be the ones that you would more communicate and find to be wanting to work closely with you if you call up on them, obviously. There are many beings in the other world. Some witches report seeing fairy dogs and horses that they are much like our animals, yet quite distinct. There are some beings that we simply have no names
I've
for because
experienced some
they
of these.
are so far outside the realm of our imagination, meaning not seen to exist in our world. But they are there, they are real, and they are true. Now, with me working with fairies, I've been able to go into certain realms by them allowing me and by me building my relationship over the years with them. So I have seen that there are animals and other things in their realms. Even though they look very, very similar to our animals, they are also very different. They look very angelic. They have different types of features. Some of the creatures there, I couldn't even explain to you what they look like. You know, some of them look like mixed matches. They've got different animal in them, or they've got different types of magical creature in them. There are just so many different ones, and a lot of them do not have identity. They only have identity
Dragons,
in that world, so
mermaids,
we do not know much about
phoenixes and stuff are very associated as well with these.
them. It is thought that the other world is more acceptable to those on Earth than other places, such as the underworld. There are said to be portals in the other world all over Earth. A mushroom ring is one type of portal, but there are many that exist. So you've got your mushroom rings, you can have your daisy rings, you've got fairy mounds, fairy pits, fairy forests and meadows. There are so many ways
There
and
are
places that
circles,
they have
trees
their
that can
portals coming
make a
open.
fairy circle as well.
In the other world, the are
Rocks.
not like strange, and time isn't constant there. Rules and ways they live are different to us. So they're very, very, very infused with their rules and their ways of their kingdoms. They take their rules and their ways of living very seriously, and they expect anybody coming into communication with them and working with them to be the same way and to respect that too. So if you are thinking of working with the Fae, as I said, it's really important that you learn about them and understand them and their other world, and they will open you to do that. A lot of people will put down that fairies are evil. The simple word is there is no evil or good when it comes to the fairy realm. They just distinctly are a character and energy that is different to us. And like us, they have two different elements. If you are nice and you're kind to them, and they are the type of fairies or fae that are meant to work with you, then you will have a very respectful relationship with them. But if you're going to be somebody that crosses lines and doesn't listen to their rules and doesn't respect them, then they can completely change. They are very powerful beings and very, very connected to their nature realms and to their realms. And they expect anyone
These
wanting
are
to
the
work
energies of the
alongside
light
them
ones, but
to
you
be the
can get the
same way.
darker
So always
as well.
remember to be
That was
respectful
slightly
and
different.
to show your gratitude to the Fae. Learning Fae folk to other people, this is the question that's always asked about, are fairies evil and that? No, they just are just like us. Yes, maybe a bit more hostile than us, very much more powerful than us, but in a lot of ways, very similar in the way that we think, even though their ways and beliefs are completely different. It's a common misconception that fairies are just totally bad. However, in my experience, the fae folk aren't good or bad. They're just individuals. Every fairy that you meet will act a bit different, just like humans, as I've just said to you. One difference in that fairies have their own rules, ethics, morals, and etiquettes. It can be difficult to understand them because they live by a culture that we aren't used to. So the more practice, the more you learn about them, the more easier it'll become to understand them. I just think it's human nature to be afraid of anything or anyone who has equal power to us. It makes sense that we're afraid of power and of the unknown because in centuries past, this meant we could be overpowered or even killed when we existed. So, for a lot of
In
humans,
some
we
cases,
are very
with
scared
the
to
negative.
change and difference. And the fae folk are not like that. They do adapt and they do change and they have a lot of understanding because they're obviously very wise and they've learned over many, many years how to live and to adapt, where we're still learning to do that. Even though it's biologically normal for us to be afraid, and a bit of research will usually help to dispel the fear, I found that most of the terror surrounding the fae folk is because of the unknown elements rather than the fairies themselves. So many people do not understand fae folk, so they fear them because they don't understand the elements, they don't know what they're here for or how they work, and they've heard past stories and tales through folklore and other things that have made people look quite negatively on what the fae folk is. Don't be mistaken. They are not creatures to mess around with or be disrespectful for. But 9 times out of 10, if you're a decent human to them, they'll be decent to you. Another thing that I've found to hear people ask is, do fairies hurt you? And the simple fact is yes. Fairies can be unpredictable. They don't act like humans in many ways. If you do something that upsets them, they're more than capable of hurting you despite their sizes and what they are. Okay, they have got many ways that they can do that. It's always important to remember that once you invite fairies in your home, you can't just lock your doors against them. Okay, once you ask a fairy into your home and you ask to work with them, that is going to be a direct communication and connection with them for life. And you trying to come away from them in a disrespectful way is not going to go down very well. Fairies are not bound by physical laws like we are, which makes it a bit harder to protect yourself sometimes from them. But just doing simple protection spells, keeping yourself calm and cleansing your home and showing them respect, you will normally 9 times out of 10 protected. Okay, just doing your normal protections you'd use every day will be fine. Just don't upset them, because like any energy of another dimension, anything can come out at you if they really want to. The fae folk exist in the realm and dimensions that is very close to ours. Unlike ghosts or spirits, they have more physical powers here than spirits do, and can cause objects to move quite easily. They are able to touch humans, something that would be incredibly difficult for a spirit to accomplish. Even though spirits and energies can move things around, it takes a lot of their energy. So a lot of the time when maybe you've been in your home and you've been noticing certain little things moving around or things going missing and you're putting it down to a spirit or a ghost energy, in fact, it could be the fae. They are around always. Many powerful witches and spiritual teachers who work with the fae folk have described negative incarnations. There are reports of fairies stealing items, causing bad luck for a long time, killing crops, hurting animals, and making people sick, temporarily blind
I'm now
humans,
reading to
or
you
causing madness or loss of speech.
some beliefs and what the
This is
fae
at the very
believe,
worst. Fairies have
which
been
is not
known to
correct.
cause strokes, bruising, or muscle cramps when they pinch or hit you, steal children, or even try to kill humans. So they steal children as well.
Very
That's
rare
a
to
law
do,
that's
and it's
meant to
normally
have
only
been
the
very
dark
known,
side.
that they will swap their fae children if they're unwell, or because they believe that their fae children are ugly, because they believe that a human baby is more attractive,
Getting rid of
and they
fairy
take
children
the
is
human baby and
something that
replace it
some
with the
fae
fae
do
child.
in both realms of the light and of the dark.
Keep in mind that these stories are the worst case scenario. In all of these instances, fairies were enchanting revenge that they felt was well deserved based on something the human had done, whether the individual realized the increation or not. Okay, so they don't normally act like this out of for no reason. There will be a very good reason to why a fairy would attack you or do these things. It's not very commonly heard to be done, but don't underestimate it. Typically, fairies only want to harm a human if the person has touched or ruined a fairy place, although this always depends on the fairy in question. They are very forgiving fairies, such as house fairies, and there are parts of the fae folk who will hurt humans for no reason at all, such as the Unsuline Core. Some fairies obviously will not work or engage with human at all, and if you try to interact or do anything out of their self-defense and protection of themselves, they will attack you But 9 times out of 10, the fairies like the pixies and the brownies and some other types of fairies are very happy with being around human and will not hurt a human unless it's very necessary. Always make sure that you are very respectful to their realms and to anything that may show in our realm to do with them. It's very important because
Doesn't
that's how you can upset
it
a
doesn't
fairy
mean
very
hurt you
quickly,
in a physical way as well. Don't
including your
take your
gardens and
powers
stuff
and
as
stuff
well.
like that. Is what
Don't
it
just
means,
throw
which are
away
ways that can hurt
certain
us in our
greens and stuff like that.
spirituality.
Explain to your fae folk and your creatures that are of nature that you're needing to do this to make the ground better and so that things can grow better, so that they don't become upset. Because they're very, very protective of nature and any element of nature, whether that's your back garden, a forest, wood, whatever it is. So always make sure if you're working with the fae and you need to remove certain plants and things like that, that you just say to them that you're needing to do it and a reason for why you're needing to do it, okay? It is known that fairies can heal you, they can befriend you, they can make your garden grow, they play with your animals, and they introduce you to a really magical world, their world. There are some lovely fairies out there who enjoy playing with children, working with nature, and interacting with more beautiful parts of the world. Fairies have been known to warn humans of danger around them. Some have even came to the aid at a time of need by a human. Some fairies assist witches with their practices. They teach their favourite humans new recipes or spells, or even how to heal chronic illnesses and many other things. Just like humans, fairies have a whole range of temperaments. I personally feel that there is no reason to be more secret, to be more scared of fairies than you are of humans walking down the street. But there is a good reason to be respectful and optimistical and cautious of the faith. I believe that some of the scary legends about the fae folk are true. I think that other stories come into existence to explain terrible things like infant deaths or kidnapping that us humans witness. A long time before we had DNA tests, organized police, or medicine like antibiotics. Death was much more common and often more brutal than common today's ways. Some people blamed these things on fairies as a coping mechanism to what had happened to them and losing their children or having bad luck and all that sort of thing. Much of your interactions with fairies will depend on the way you treat them, as well as the individual fairy's personality and temperament. In many cultures, there is dark, light, and a whole area of colours in between. Keep in mind that fairies are often mischievous. This doesn't mean that they are bad, but they typically enjoy playing tricks or using word play. They might steal things from your home or trick you into giving them something. Most fairies can't lie. While they will be technically telling you the truth, they're experts at using wordplay to trick you or avoid answering your questions. Remember that once you strike a deal with a fairy, there is no getting out of it. Fairies are known to force you to consent verbally. The verbal deal is extremely important to them in any way possible, so be extremely careful. Even agreeing to further negotiations is a deal of sorts because you simply can't back out of chatting once you have agreed. The word maybe is your friend when you're talking to fairies. think about it and really think about if the Fae are somebody you want to work with. Because if you do, you've really got to understand their characteristics, their way of living, their rules, everything. You can't just go into working with them. There's a lot behind it. As long as you remain humble and acknowledgeable when you have messed up. They tend to know that I'm trying to do and seem to appreciate the efforts that I put in my work and trying to work with them. So they are very, very happy with working close to me because I've built that relationship with them. I will normally say this isn't everyone, but I will say this is not for everybody's experience. Not everybody's going to be wanting to work with Fae. So really do think about it, just like you would think about going into your witchcraft and stuff. You need to really think about it. So go into any situation with the fairy folk very varies and be prepared. I'll talk more about how to prep very, very soon, guys, okay? Before you contact the Fae folk or you attempt anything with them, you should know these 3 things and follow them. Basic Fae folk terminology, fairy equips, how to set up boundaries and ward without causing offence, and how to protect yourself if needed. I'll go over how to do each of these things with you all. Just keep listening. If you're interested in working with the Fae folk at some point in your life, then please make sure that you do follow everything I'm saying to you. So let's go on to some more details about working with the Fae folk. Another question that's normally asked is, can we eat the fairy food? Okay, so what about eating fairy food? It is dangerous. Is it dangerous? This is a pretty basic question and a valid concern because we are so often warned against eating fairy food. Legend says that eating the fairy food or the food of the Fae folk will cause you to become stuck in the fairy world or go crazy because you will lose the taste for our regular food. First off, how would you actually get stuck in a fairy world? You're probably wondering. Obviously, this has never happened to me, but legends, as well as many modern day witches, say that you will typically be taken into the other world when you're alone. This will probably be when you're out on a walk and away from human society. It may take months for this to happen, but you will suddenly go missing. Everyone will assume that you have been kidnapped or gone away. It will be like you vanished without a trace. Some who are taken into the world of the Fae folk never return, while others come back a good time later. Time doesn't work the same in the other world, so it's hard to say how much time you will miss while you're gone, or what to experience and what to see while you're there. Alternatively, if you lose the taste for regular food, it can make you go crazy. It can make you very sick, in some cases, even death, because you simply refuse to eat. Fairy food is said to make humans very sick if eaten by us. I can't say I've ever attempted to try it, and I wouldn't. You might be wondering, how would you even eat fairy food if you can't usually see fairies? Then how could you possibly be offered food? Well, the simple question to that is, the most obvious way would be if you were to eat something you find in the woods, in a spot that clearly belongs to the Fae folk. If you sense a fairy energy, hear music, or feel as though you're being watched, see a ring of mushrooms or daisies, etc., don't eat anything from that area. The most commonly consumed food in these areas are berries, herbs, leaves, and mushrooms. Stay well away unless you're offered it. But even then, you need to be very conscious. I will explain more. However, fairies will sometimes appear as humans to imagine you coming along and you see a lemonade stand in the middle of an abandoned road, tended by children. They offer you a free lemonade along your trip. This might just be a regular lemonade stand, or it might be the fairies in disguise. They can go into human form to try to trick certain humans, especially if you've upset them or you've done bad things and they don't agree with it. If you're somebody that harms nature, animals, things like that, they can be known to take human form to try to take their revenge. The way to protect yourself is to pay for the lemonade. Fairies are all about free trade, so it's rare for their spells to work if you're actually paying for the goods you receive. The same thing goes for free donuts outside a coffee shop or even samples in a mall. In general, don't take free food unless it's from someone you know. Is it safe to eat the food of the Fae folk if it's a gift given in receptracy? Let's say you give your fairy friend a shiny mineral stone and they recombinate with some berries that you know for a fact are safe to eat. These berries are a gift in receptracy, meaning you won't owe a debit if you consume them. So if a fairy gives you a gift for something you've given to them, and you know that fairy very well, and they have never stepped out of line, then if they offer you their food, it's fine because they will normally give you food they know that would be okay for you. But don't go taking the food on your own and without ask them offering it to you because it could be a completely different outcome. Okay. And I would still be very, very cautious about taking the food. Like I said, you really do need to have known your fairy friends for a long time and got to know their characters to know if you'd be safe if they did that. In my case, if my fairies come and gave me food and gave me offerings, which they have done, I will happily take it because as it can be quite disrespectful to them and because I know them. Okay, so but I don't take it just from any other energy that I see. It took me a long time to trust them to do that. So it's called building a relationship. It's also fine to eat fairy food if you specifically ask for it and are granted the food, as long as you cooperate with a gift in kind. Fairies are all about an equal exchange, but it has to be something you want to do. They won't actually ask for a gift back, yet fairy equips often demand it, and you may be punished if you don't do as you say. So again, you can ask for the fairy food, and if they give you permission to be able to eat it and they say that it's safe to, then do so. But always make sure you give them a gift and you give them offerings back. They do not like to not be paid for their kindness. Okay, it's very important to know that. Lastly, you can be offered fairy food by a member of the Fae folk in dreams or in astral travel. I do recommend politely in refusing if possible. Just be as kind and nice to them as possible to say, I'm okay for the food today and I wish that you have that food so that you and your Fae family can eat happy and better tonight. You don't want to say it in a way that's going to upset them. You want to be kind. Taking food in a dream from a fae folk can be more dangerous because you can be more easily tricked doing it this way because you're unconscious in your sleep and your energy is everywhere, so they can very much interact and do that. So don't take anything from them when you're sleeping. So how to contact fae folk? I'm sure that all of you guys are wanting to know how you can communicate and connect with the fae folk. Before you even think about contacting the fae folk, set up some boundaries and walls. I'll go more into how to do this in the next section, okay? You should also be prepared to put in the effort before you contact fairies. Once you start giving gifts on a regular basis and building a relationship, they may get ups- they may get upset or hurt if you suddenly stop and might retaliate. Of course, not every fairy is like this, but there are some unspoken faithful rules that it would be prudent to follow. So definitely following these rules. So going out into the forest, putting things down for them wherever you live, putting down food, putting down shiny things that they like, talking to them, showing your love and respect to them is something that you should do to build your relationship with your fae. Once you do start working with your fae, don't stop doing these things that I'm saying to you, because it can offend them and it can make them very upset and very angry. They are very much about their rules and respect. So make sure that you do respect them if you're working with them. Respect the fae folk and what belongs to them. Don't go walking into areas that are clearly marked for fairies. Instead, contact them and let them come to you at their own pace. If you do get the feeling that you're intruded, don't go back to the area unless invited. Another thing to do is to learn more about your local folklore and regional legends before beginning to work with them as well. Try to figure out what kind of fae folk live in your area and who you might be contacting with. Okay, it's very important to understand the types of fairies that live in your area. Every fairy in a different region, city, town, country are different, okay, and have different rules and different ways of living. So it's very important to understand and learn that. Keep in mind that if you want to build a relationship with any of the Fae folk, it can take a while. The Fae don't trust anyone right away, especially not humans, and it can be understandable. I'm not being funny. All of these energies of other worlds, including the Fae, see what humans do to themselves and to their world and how we treat other things that are different to us. So they are very skeptical about us and very cautious. So it's very important in building that relationship with your Fae folk and showing them that you are a decent individual and somebody that very much respects and loves their ways, okay? And that you will not overcross them. It takes a long time to build a relationship with the Fae and for them to fully trust you, and it'll take even longer for them to take you into their realms and learn you about things. So just building that relationship by putting gifts and putting things out and acknowledging them and being respectful and learning and educating yourself into things that they like and do is really going to help you and put you on the list as a good list for the Fae. Relationships with fairies. These relationships should look kind of like a relationship with a human person. You can't just ask for a fae to be around when you feel like it, as you may do with your guides. This has to be an equal relationship. They don't like feeling used. To begin working with the fae folk, start leaving them offerings. They enjoy small shiny things like crystals, silver baubles, mirrored pieces, etc. They also like sweet foods like milk, honey, bread, nuts, some fruits, and some alcohols, waters, and juices. Give them the best part of your food or
Cakes,
trinkets
biscuits,
instead of the
many
worst.
things.
They want to be noticed and love knowing that you put the effort in to build a relationship with them. Never give them your scraps and your afters. Always give them the best. Okay, they deserve that. They are energies working with you and interacting with you, and it's just mutual respect. Okay. If you don't want the fae in your home straight away, leave the offerings outside. Try to pick a specific place and be constant about leaving offerings there. If you live in an apartment, you can use a window box or find a spot at a park if you don't want to invite the fae into your home. And I would suggest that you wouldn't invite them in straight away through my experiences. Get to know them outside, build that relationship with them. Once you have that relationship, then it's up to you. Most definitely for people that are just learning. If you're people that are and have been interacting with the Fae and you're feeling you're getting to that point where you feel comfortable with having them in home, then by way do so. But anybody that's just coming in to learning to work with Fae and communicate and connect with them, do not invite them into your home straight away. Okay? Build that relationship. Plant lots of flowers in your garden if you have one. The Fae folk in general love gardens and nature. When you see butterflies or birds frequently around your garden, that usually means it's the type of place that fairies would enjoy being too. When working with the Fae, avoid iron. It harms the Fae. To be safe, I try to keep iron out of my garden for the sake of my Fae friends, okay? Leave it out of your garden. Don't have it in direct places in your home where the Fae come in if you are somebody that works with it because it's very dangerous for them and they take great offence in you trying to use it on them. Fairies love wind chimes or anything that makes music. They also love small fairy houses and are drawn to anything who do, to anyone who do them little dwellings, like giving them offerings, making them things, and making them feel appreciated. If you want to be clear about your intentions to them, try placing some homemade wooden fairy homes, or you can buy lovely ones too for your fae friend and put them in your garden for them. You can put them in your home if you don't have a garden as well, or on a windowsill, just anywhere where the fae can get to it, okay? In general, be kind and generous in wildlife. The fairies will see what type of person you are before you even start contacting them. You cannot hide the person you are to the fae. You cannot hide the person you are from the fae. They're very, very good at picking that up. You can also simply tell the fairies that they are welcome by talking out loud or writing a note to them. However, once you say it, you can't take it back. So be very specific in your wording and don't say anything to upset them or to offend them. Do all from your heart with good intent and truth. The Fae are very clever. It's not often you can fool them, and why would you want to try? If a member of the Fae folk is interested in talking to you, they may leave you a gift, move items around, show up in dreams, or even reveal themselves to you during walking hours and walks. Keep your eyes open and always remember to reciprocate and accept the gifts. How do you know that you are contacting the faithful and not spirits or ghosts? This is something that's really spoke about a lot. Sometimes spirits work can be difficult because spirits can lie. You might be talking to a negative entity who has convinced you they are an orphaned child. It can actually be a bit dangerous if you're not careful. So how can you know that you are contacting the fae folk and not a spirit or a ghost? First of all, the fae folk are actually around quite often. You may have thought that you have ghosts or spirits around when in fact it's actually fairies. There are a few ways to tell the difference. When fairies or the fae folk are around, items might disappear. Cats will act strangely. You may hear sorcerers, or you will hear wild music, or have strange songs stuck in your head. You may see motion in your peripheral vision that looks shiny or flashy. I will include some more ways for you to know about the fairy folk. It is down the bottom, and knowing when they're around. But for the purpose of this section, there are some clear differences between the presence of fairies and the presence of ghosts. Spirits, ghosts, or entities will have a darker or shadowy form that you can see if you possess a clairvoyant ability, but they will be fuzzy or see-through. Sometimes fairies won't appear like that. They're generally completely visible or totally hidden. Spirits will make small things move because it takes a lot of their energy from them to interact on our plane. Fairies can move things quite easily, but they will usually wait until you're not looking, while ghosts or spirits will move something small in front of you to indicate that they are present in your home. Fairies enjoy the objects themselves. They might steal things. Some fairies, such as brownies, could even help you clean up your home or garden, it's said. But I say they give you the go and inspiration to do it. Spirits, on the other hand, only move things for the purpose of interacting with you. They want you to know they are around. Ghosts or spirits will give off a distinct vibe when they're present. You will feel like a person or an entity is present. The feeling could even be heavy, or sometimes fairies will give off a light, mischievous feeling most of the time. If you're speaking with a being, note that fairies can't lie, but ghosts can. However, legend states that if you ask a spirit the same question 3 times, they will either answer it truthfully all 3 times, or will have to change one of the answers, and you will know that they are lying. Just to be safe, ask any being that you the same question 3 times in a polite way and see how they answer. If you are sure that you're in contact with a fairy and don't actually want to work with them, I recommend leaving the area that you see them if you're in the fairy domain. If you're in your home, see if you can just ignore each other or pretend they don't exist, or figure out a way of politely banishing it when in doubt. Use friendly cautions. Use your protection amulets and other things around you as well, just to keep you safe. You've got other energies and deities you can ask them to keep them at bay as well. So there are ways to help to keep them at bay. However, if you are sure it's a ghost or an entity and are getting bad vibes, you don't need to be with the you don't need to be the same with them, but you can still be respectful. With most spirits and ghosts, it's easier to rid them than the Fae. You can throw up your wand and banish them right away. The Fae can be trickier. Fae folk rules and etiquettes. Fairies have different etiquettes than humans, although many Fae folk rules will depend on the specific type of fairy that you're working with. It doesn't hurt to start with your few basics. Most fairies I have contacted have been very forgiving. If I messed up, I have heard that this isn't always the case. As always, do your research before going into working with the Fae. First of all, it isn't generally polite to call them fairies or fairies. Instead, call them beings, the Fae folk, or good people, forest folk. You can also ask them what they would like to be called by you as well. There may be a particular name or a way that they want you to communicate with them, and they will instruct that to you, and that's how you would talk to them. And bring them in. Don't try to force a fairy to give you its name. To fairies, names are very important and hold a lot of power. Instead, you can ask what the fae would like to be called by you. It's also best to avoid giving fairies your name, but to be polite and thankful, I recommend using a nickname that is somehow related to your full name so they won't feel like you tricked them if they find out. Another legend says that fairies don't like to be thanked, depending on the type of fairy you're talking to. Thanks can either be offensive because it implies that they're subservient to you, or it may mean that you owe them a debit and are now bound to them. Instead of thanking the faithful, express gratitude for gifts given. Here are some lines that I find work for me and are really good to say to your faithful when you're feeling very happy about something they've done for you. I'm so happy that this object is here. It's beautiful. I really appreciate this object. You can say the object name, obviously. So, for instance, I am so happy that this object is here. It is beautiful. I really appreciate this crystal that you have given me. You can say, I appreciate your time and help when they're helping you. Instead of saying thank you, just say, I appreciate your time and your help. And acceptable gifts and offerings are always good to give to the fae folk as well. It's very, very important. If the fae folk give you a gift, you should probably accept it. In fact, fairies may be offended if you reject the gift, or at the very least a bit hurt of your action. However, fairy gifts are sometimes traps. Legends does say that gifts that seem like something are nothing, and the gifts that seem like nothing are actually something quite important, for good or bad. Use your intuition when it comes to accepting gifts. Sense how the object gift feels before accepting it. If you do receive a gift from the fae folk, give a return gift that's thoughtful. Do it as quickly as possible. Fairies work on debit systems and typically feel owed if they give you something. For example, if you gift them something back, they might avoid causing you mischief because they appreciate your reception. If you don't return a gift, then accept something to go missing from your home. These are the unspoken fae folk rule. Try to never spy on the fae folk. If fairies are seen when they don't wish to be, they may get angry or withdraw altogether. Fairies like to be invisible in our world because it can be dangerous to them. If you do see them and aren't positive they want you to, simply pretend not to notice. Most of the fae folk have strong glamours that they put up, but you can sometimes see through them if your physic senses is activated. It's best to go on your way and avoid staring. When you're in contact with fairies, do not brag about it to anyone. It's safest to tell no one at all. But
unless
if
you're
you do
instructed
want
to.
to share your experiences, tell only your closest friends in private. If a fairy asks you not to tell other people something, don't speak of it. They have ways of knowing. However, most fairies just don't want you to brag about your contact with them. Make sure to speak well of the fae folk, even when they aren't around, because they could be listening. Silence is always better. Don't lie to the fairies. You can certainly stretch the truth or be clever about what you say, as they always are, but don't straight up lie. For example, giving them a nickname instead of your real name, but don't give a fake name. Fairies can get upset if they find out they have been lied to. Don't break your word. In the kingdom of the Fae folk, there are no three strikes. You only need to break your word once to anger them. A promise is a promise. Even if it didn't feel serious to you at the time, if you agree to something, fairies consider your word a binding oath. When you're giving offerings to the Fae folk, try to notice what things they like. Most fairies prefer sweet food
That's all
like
very true.
honey, cream, bread, crackers, champagne, or even whiskey. They will also like things that are native to our traditions and our areas of ancestry and whatever you're most connected to and they're most connected to. Avoid meat on heavily processed food. Fairies that love meat typically aren't the sort that you want to be around you, and that is me telling you straight. If you're doing a yard work, taking down trees, etc., give your nature spirits and fairies a few days' notice. Bring an offering out to the garden and explain to them why you have to do this work. Generally, it's best to avoid this as much as possible. Be kind and generous to nature and animals and keep trash away from fairy areas. Fairies really hate getting dirty.
This includes dirty water, fresh water
Lastly,
every
if
day.
fairies ask to borrow something, it's usually good to give it to them. They will always pay you back somehow. Fairies don't like to owe debits. Just taking a breather for a couple of minutes, guys.
Yeah, the Fae are normally pretty reasonable to work with. There are the darker side, and they're the ones that you really need to be careful with, that you don't cross.
Signs that the Fae folk are around. This is going back to what I was talking to you about earlier,
Take
guys.
note of this.
When you first start talking to the Fae folk and attempt working with fairies, you'll want to know if they're actually around. There are a few things that mean you'll likely have fairies in your garden or home, depending on where you have invited them to be. Some of the signs that indicate fairies are around you. You see lights flickering in the corner of your eyes. You see spheres or light around flowers, greenery, or mushrooms. Your shoes move from one place to another. Your jewelry, crystals, or other shiny objects disappear. Your pets, especially cats, act like they're playing with an invisible creature. You have interesting dreams filled with bright colours, fairy music, or sweet food. You are taught things in dreams by fairies. You hear bells, tapping, laughter, fairy music, or singing with no source. And random gifts. That could be virtually anything that shows up in your house or your garden. You can you come across a mushroom ring, a clear sign that fairy folk were there. You smell the overwhelming scent of flowers with no clear source, and you feel as though someone is watching you. These are some of the signs that you will pick up and give you indication that the fae folk are around your area, in your gardens, or in your home.
Take note of that, guys. Very important.
So, how do you protect yourself from the fae folk? I always recommend that you learn about protection before you begin working with the fae folk. While many of the fae are wonderful creatures and friends, it's just prudent to protect yourself like you would even around human beings. First of all, set up some wards. I recommend that you ward your home so that only those invited may enter. Engage with fairies outside only at first until you feel comfortable inviting them in and have built a relationship. And by wards, meaning doing certain words and chants and spells and things out to put protection in your home and to keep it at bay. Things like that, guys. I also recommend that you ward your body, cleansing, balancing, all those sort of things. I recommend that you ward your body and the bodies of anyone who lives in your home. I typically draw from the earth to the power of these wards so that they stay strong over time. I like to make talismans that will break 24 hours before the ward goes down, so I have a chance to redo them. So, for instance, what I mean by that is talisman. You can do a particular protection sign on a piece of paper or on some clay, or you can make an object or a spell bag with the energy of protection and things in it, and you make it for 24 hours. You imply that intention after you know, just before about 5 or 6 hours before you know that that 24-hour ward thing is going to go off, you remake it again and re-imply it so that you're continuing that in your home. But 9 times out of 10, you don't need to do this if the Fae are okay with you. Just use your normal and everyday protection that you would use. Okay. I typically draw from the earth power these wards so that they stay strong over time. I like to do it within 24 hours before the ward goes down, so I have a chance to redo them. It's very important that you ward against physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual damage, as fairies are able to inflict many different kinds of harm. I cleanse my space frequently to make sure that
More
nothing
known in the darker side,
unwanted
not in the
has
light.
slipped past the walls. I recommend doing this, although your ward will get stronger over time the more that you do it. You can even ward your yard if you're feeling nervous when you're first meeting with the fairies. Invite them in for an afternoon or for a set amount of time. Be very careful with your wording, as this now means they're allowed in, which you can't take back until the time period has passed. If you have children, it is especially important that you ward them properly before beginning work with the Fae folk. Children can be attractive to fairies with ulterior motives. Legends say that the Fae folk sometimes stole children right out of their beds and replaced them with their Fae children.
To me, this is more of a myth
If it got to a really bad
than actual
situation and you
fact.
had some
I've not
energies of
witnessed this
Fae there that were
happen.
not very good
Seem
or
very
weren't doing you
protective
very
of
good,
children.
then you could get the aspect of iron out, because that is a way to get rid of them permanently. But if you're going to do that, you will break any friendship, trust between you and the Fae, and the likelihood of you ever being in communication with another Fae folk is going to be very slim. Place iron in your children's room as well as across as crosses, if this feels comfortable to you. Teach them how to act around the Fae folk and how to stay safe. Keep an eye on your children when you're in nature, such as on walks and through the woods. So, learning your children and educating them about the Fae folk is something that is very, very important, especially if you're going to be working with them. As long as you're keeping gifts and things out for them, 9 times out of 10 they're going to be fine and they're going to get used to you and they'll respect anything that's in your life. But the Fae folk do have a massive attraction to children that are human, okay? Because they just have it in their head that their children are not very attractive, or that maybe they're not well or something like that, so they want to replace it with a human child. So always making sure you're doing your wards over your children and things like that, keeping them safe, learning them about the Fae folk, not upsetting them, and just making sure that everything is how it should be. If worst comes to worst, about 80% of fairies are repelled or injured by iron. You can make a charm of iron or place a bit of iron into a spray bottle and create iron spray. Any type of iron as well as steel which contains iron will work. However, this is really a last resort. Do not do this if you don't need to, because I'm telling you, you will affect the friendship. Because using iron will damage your relationship with the faithful beyond repair. It's quite literally throwing them out of your house instead of working with them. I would much rather apologize for what I have done, give a gift, or come to some sort of resolution rather than banish fairies from my life. At the end of the day, you should always trust your own instincts. There are wonderful fairies full of light and full of love. And there are also darker fairies who need little provocation. If something feels off, it probably is. Take steps to protect yourself before you begin working with the Fae, and you will have much less to worry about. Safety and protection with our Fae. I really do love the Fae, but I've known many people that would rather stay far away as they can. And of course, it's very important to know safety guidelines whether you do or don't connect with the Fae. So here's some information I've collected for you all. For many different sources. Never use your real name when interacting with the Fae, or they can take control over you. Always be polite and respectful, and do your best not to offend. Remember, better safe than sorry. As a general rule, don't eat food when visiting the Fae realm. This will make you a captive unable to leave, and often the food isn't as wonderful as it seems, and only glamoured rocks,
This
mud,
one
and
is
sticks are
like a
given.
legend.
It's said
I've not
fairies will
seen
take
this happen
offence
yet.
if you don't accept food they offer to you in their own world if you've given gifts back to them and things. Do not think yourself more clever than them or try to swindle them. You will end up in a very hot water. You may not want to accept fairy money, as again it is often glamoured and will turn back into leaves and acorns soon after. Do not blindly intrude where you are not wanted. Fairy rings, secret fairy places, etc. Always ask first and respect their answer and their rules. Should
Or
you
wait for
find
them to invite
you've
you.
wandered into a place where you feel strong malevolent energy or evil presence and experience fairy terror, back away slowly, don't run or you might get lost. Send out your goodwill and if you can, throw up a bubble or an egg ward to protect yourself. Do not take the Fae lightly or seek them half hearted. Take care not to act as if they were weak, harmless, and limited. It is very foolish to underestimate them. Fairies are not strikingly good or evil, neither are humans, and respect and caution are always best. Salt and iron, tools made from iron, and a nail in your pocket are traditional fairy demerits, meaning to keep them away and stuff like that. If you're somebody that's not wanting to work with them. Three-leaf clovers can be carried as a protective charm, and four-leaf ones can break through fairy magic or allow you to see hidden fae.
Note some traditions say you should have multiple clothes as each will only work once. Wearing St. John's wort will give you strong protection from fairy magic, as will wearing daisies also. Carrying a rowan twig or hanging one over your door that was collected on Beltane may bring protection. Beltane. Flipping your clothes inside out can prevent fairies' mischief by its unexpectedness. Visualization wards can be effective. Scatter primrose petals outside your door to keep fairies at bay by creating a barrier. If you hear blue if you hear bluebell chimes, if it is a warning that danger or fairy enchantments are near. Putting a daisy chain on a child is said to protect them from being taken as a channeling. Forget-me-nots can be used for fairy protection. If you're friendly with any fairies, you may ask them for protection against ill will fae. Fairies will avoid gardens with tomato plants. Make a bundle of twigs
Some of them.
from the tree of the fairy trade, oak, ash, or thorn, and carry it for protection. It will only work if they're bound together. If separate, they are a invasion to the fae. One traditional fairy protection is placing mirrors throughout your home. Cats may chase away fairies. The sound of heavy iron bells and chimes may drive them away. Leaving out gifts of honey and milk can appease the fae if you wish them to leave you alone. Connecting to the fae. Dried thyme sprinkled on doorsteps and window sills will invite in fairies. Wearing thyme may enable you to see fairies. 7 grains of wheat laid on a 4-leaf clover may enable you to see fairies. Where oak, ash, and thorn grow, fairies can be easily seen. Lilac flowers will draw sprites and repel those that are ill-willed. Eating a primrose flower is said to give you fairy sight. Collecting 5 primroses and tapping them on a fairy rock may open a portal to the fairy land. Place primroses on your door to receive a fairy blessing. Carry spring or lavender.
There are many ways to use
Carrying a
these
spring of
flowers.
lavender may help you see fairies. Fresh flowers brings fairies. Keep houseplants in your living space to invite the fairies of those flowers. Fairies are attracted to those with childlike hearts and minds. Fairies are attracted to those with childlike hearts and minds.
Meaning
Carry
open.
with you a sprig of any flower or herb whose fairy you wish to be close for the fairies you wish to be close to. Place the sprig under your pillow to receive a dream from your fairy friend. Bringing an acorn into your house will strengthen your connection to your fairy friends and their realms. Meditating on a on the appearance of the marigold flower may enhance your fairy sight. Grow a garden with flowers associated with fae. Add fairies or gnomes statues to your garden. They find this amusing. Have specific spaces in your home, a shelf, windowsill, table, etc., for the fairies to live in, and a spot to leave gifts for them. Mine is in my front room. I normally put it either onto my altar, or I am going to be making a fairy
I now have a
area
fairy
up for
garden.
them, just specifically for them, where I will be putting their offerings and stuff. I am moving it all around. Let a portion of your garden grow wild. Fairies love this and love to be able to hide, and you want to make sure that your home and your garden is beneficial to fairies if you're wanting to work with them. If you're working with them, it's very important to keep them hid and to respect their way. Okay, so doing these sort of things really do help. Wind chimes hung in a window attracts the sprites and the fae. Fairies love music and dancing. Dance in nature with them or sing. Play a song for them. Create art for them and draw the fairies you meet. They love to be interacted with and they love to be acknowledged and they love to see that
I
you
do suggest
accept
that you
them
don't try
and
dancing
appreciate
and doing
them.
that in their actual realms, though. Sometimes do it in your own garden and in places where you're known to be around them, but don't be so quick to go and do it in their realms until you've really got to know the fairy companion and friend that you have.
An often used method of seeing fairies is letting your eyes go out of focus and pay attention to the corners of your vision. Crushed clove rubbed on eyelid may give one fairy sight. Give back to earth for what you take. Pick up trash you find in nature. Try to use less plastics. Don't waste food. Compost your fruit and vegetables. Herbs for rich soil. The best time to see fairies are dawn and dusk and midnight, the in between times. Hang glasses, crystals, and beads in your windows for the sun to shine through. Fairies like glittery and sparkly things, anything that's pretty. Wearing a crown, or an elder twigs, or May Eve will enable you to see fairies. Go out and just sit in nature, simply enjoying it. You can also practice sensing sprites. While it is dangerous to enter a fairy ring, running around it exactly 9 times clockwise under a full moon will allow you to see and hear the fairies dancing inside it. Note, though, the fairies may take offence if this is done on Beltane or the Smayan,
You've really
so
got to
don't do
know
it more
them
on
to
them
do that.
seasons. Heather is said to open portals to the fairyland. Looking through a stone with a natural hole, a hangstone is said to allow one fairy sight. Add a signal on your door or window, meaning good fairies welcomed. Leave out small saucers of milk for any household fairies. Try sitting in your garden in the early morning, late afternoon, and evening and night. Look up articles and specialize in fairies and observe their different interpretations of the fae. Some of these people could be Brian Froud, Amy Brown, Sol Smith Wolfing, Cicely Mark Baker, Howard David Johnson, and Nadia Sri Lanka, etc. These are some people that are really good to look up on. Read real life accounts of people's encounters with fairies to get to know them and to understand their characteristics. Read traditional fairy lore and folklore, learning about their traditions, their rules, their ways of living, learning.
I will say that when doing that, when actually following other people, really make sure that you believe in what they're telling you and that the story to you seems true. This is really a really important time to use your intuition. How does it make you feel when they're telling you the story? Does it ring true to you? Do you feel that they have that connection with the Fae? Once you start to be able to communicate with Fae and get to know them, you'll kind of understand and feel the way an energy would feel being in connection with them. So when looking and understanding other people's views and comments on Fae, you'll be able to pick up on whether they're being truthful or they're not. It's really important to understand that you need to be very careful when it comes to taking education and taking advice from people because not everybody is quite who they seem, and some of them are not quite as educated as they make out. And for having that reason, this can put a lot of you in danger. Even though the light fae are said to be very positive and very good energy, they can change character when upset. And obviously, you have the darker side of the fae from the unseen eye, which are the ones that are malevolent, malicious, and can do very evil things and can cause very severe harm, and in very small situations, sometimes death. So it's really, really important to know about your fairies and learn about their laws, their education, their places that they live, which is Avalon and our Earth. Learn about them in both places. Learn about their characteristics and who they are. Don't, as I've said, just go into working with the Fae if you do not have an understanding for them. You do need to invite them, you do need to welcome them, and you have to be willing and open hearted to be taught and educated by them, and that you give your oath and word that you will not betray them in any way or form, because then you may just see the other side of the good Fae folk, which you don't want because they can be just as nasty as the darker side if they are provoked to be so. Now, this is a very uncommon thing and is not done very much. Most of the good fae are very forgiving and understand that we can make mistakes. But if you do overstep a certain trade, it would normally be something that, and people that are very known in the fairy education and understanding them. If you're somebody like myself that's been doing this for years and understands them, and then does something right out of the ordinary that's not good for the fae, it's not going to go down well for somebody like me. For instance, some of you are quite new to working with the fae and they know you're going to make mistakes. Obviously, it's still very important for you to show your gratitude and that you're sorry for what you've done without saying sorry. You say it a different way. It's important to still do that, but they will be very more open to you because you are new to it. But if it was somebody, like I said, like myself, and I'd done that, they will not take that lightly because I have come to understand and learn about the Fae. I have worked and I see the Fae, and I have learned their ways and how they live as a character in my country. It's very important that I do state to all of you that all Fae folk in different countries will act different, have different laws, and have different attributes that they abide by. So it is very important that you communicate, connect, study, and do as much research and learning before thinking of working with them. And let's get back to the video. What you can learn about their realms and things like that are very important. Believe most fairies likely won't interact or make themselves known to closed minds. So you need to be very open to wanting to communicate with them and work with them for them to come forward and communicate with you. You do have to have that belief and that want to communicate with them, just as you would with your dragons. or any other sort of energy you work with. Don't forget to be polite and to be respectful. That is very important when it comes to the fae folk. They don't like being disrespected. They don't like being treated like they're not important. So it is very, very important for you to be respectful to them and so on. They are a higher energy and they have much wisdom, and
this is
that's
the
so yes,
video that I have done
respect
to
goes a
you,
long
giving
way.
you some information and folklore and history about fairies and how to work with them, how to interact with them, signs and things to look out for if you're wanting to interact with them, and signs and things to look out for to know if they're around, so that if you are somebody that's not wanting to interact with them, you will know. Okay, giving you lots of information, giving you an understanding of what they're about. So, as I said to you, fairy are not good or bad. They are beings of the other world. They are very much connected with nature and with animals and with just the physical and normal world that is out there that a lot of us take for granted. Okay, so if you are somebody that is wanting to communicate with them and connect with them and work with them, then make sure that you've got a very pure heart and that you very much appreciate and respect nature, animals, and respect their way of living. And by doing that, you can actually go into learning about them first. Anybody thinking about going into working with the Fae need to realise that they need to be educated and have an understanding about the different types of Fae, how they live, their traditions, their laws, whatever information is there about their realms that they live in, the other world. All of these aspects are very important to learn and to educate about first before thinking of going into communication with them. And remember that once you make that communication and you ask for them to be involved with you and you build that relationship, do not go back on your word and do not start to dispel on what you would normally do for them. Keep that up. Keep that regular. That even goes with the offerings and things. Keep it regularly and keep them happy. You do not want to be upsetting the fae folk, okay? And remember not to call them fairies to their faces. They do not like it. The good people, the
That's
good
normally
folk,
when you're a lot more
or
established with them that they're okay with
forest
you calling them
folk,
fairies.
anything like that is okay to call them that. Or you can ask them outright, is there a name that they would like you to call them? And do not reveal your real name, but come up with a nickname that does represent your real name. They don't like to be lied
Or
to,
use your
they don't
spiritual
like
name.
to be misled, and they don't like to be disrespected. So if you're going to be working with them, respect their rules, their way of living, and don't be disloyal to them. Stay true, dedicated, and respectful to the faith. They are very powerful creatures and they don't take lightly to us humans misleading them and treating them wrong. And 9 times out of 10, you can't mislead them. So I will be having another video to do with the Fae coming out soon, which will be on the different types of Fae and what they do and how they live. Okay, so this video was just to give you general information and understanding about the Fae folk. The second video will be more about them in their different traits and who they are and how they live. So that was the video. So obviously today I've learned you about my connections and how I got involved with the Fae. Then I gave you some very useful information and fact from my experiences and ways and what I believe the Fae to be. Then this very, very interesting video. So some of the stuff in the video I do believe in and know is to be true, but some of it not so much. But I really felt that this needed to be portrayed and showed to you guys because it's important to understand just how easy it can be to be misled and to follow things said by others. There is a lot of stuff in there about saying about all fae folk being negative and being this and being that, when in fact, not really. Okay, the light fae folk, which are the sea light court, are normally positive
and good energies. They are of the holy, the light, and they are also said to be able to work and mingle with angel. So these energies intend to be quite positive and quite good. Don't get that mistaken between their energy and the angel energy though. They still have a different characteristic and work in a different way. So you would not class the fae folk of the light of being as holy as an angel. But they do understand the importance of following rules and being respectful to all race and all world. Okay. So for them to be able to react in quite a negative way to you and treat you in quite a negative way, you have got to have done something very bad to them. I don't in any shape or form say that you should cross the light form of the fairies, not at all. They are very powerful, they are very strong, they are very wise, and you cannot fool any type of fae, whether they're from the light or from the dark, and they will most definitely pick up on that. When they're talking about not revealing your name, so if you've got a long name like mine, saying one part of that name would be okay. Or if you are a spiritual practitioner and you have a name that you go by, you could use your spiritual practitioner name with the Fae. Or you could choose a name that is suitable for you and the Fae to come together with. So you would look at things that would be representative to you, but also representative to them. So obviously for me, my situation and my coming into communication with the Fae was a little bit different. I didn't seek them, they seeked me. And I was giving my name by them. So it's a little bit different. But if you're somebody that's not been given a name by the Fae and you've not been working with them very long, it might be wise to make sure that you come up with a name that is true in who you are, but not actually your real name. Because once you give a fairy your real name, they have that control and hold over you, which you don't want to have any sort of energy have control or hold over you. But most definitely not the fae, because of the different realms that are there. As for with the negative energies that have been spoke for, and I've told you about today as well in these videos, yes, they are malevolent, they can be very dangerous, and in very, very extreme examples, they are said to be able to kill you. But I have never really come across anything that says that a fairy has done this to anybody, just like with the fairy foods and stuff as well. You know, in my opinion, don't ever take fairy food when you're in their realm or when you're asleep. Okay. But if they give you as an offering for something that you've done for them and they give you some food, it's okay to take it. But if you don't feel comfortable, do not eat it. Just say thank you and I accept this food and I thank you and I give you love and I give you honor for thinking of me. Okay. And take the food and maybe give it to nature if it's safe for nature, or you can pass it to somebody else, you know, because it's no longer in their hands anymore. It's you that has it. Okay. So it becomes your energy and your gift. So if you're not comfortable and you're not sure, then don't eat anything, but don't refuse it, because they take a great offense in having food offerings and gift offerings being refused. You can take that, you can use it for the benefit of other animals or other people, or you can just have that stuff placed upon certain altars to give to other energies and things that you work with. That way, you're not refusing it and it's still being used and put to good use. And it's showing the dedication and love that you feel for their gift that they give to you. So it's just really important to understand these things. The Fae are really fascinating and extraordinary creatures, and they can open your mind and your magic and you as a being in so many ways. Having them in your life is so fulfilling and so rewarding if you know how to love and respect them right. So that's why I keep saying about study, training, and learning about them, learning every aspect about them before completely wanting to communicate with them. If you are people that find their energy fascinating but you don't want to work with them, then don't call out to them, don't put offerings out, and certainly do not put fairy doors and fairy houses and things out either, because you will be inviting them. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and I hope that it's helped you to understand a little bit more and to really see that equivalent of what it's named. Do you know us fairies really? In my opinion, a lot of people do not know fairies. They go by the stories and the tales that have been spoke about them, or some people maybe have had experiences but not quite had experiences the way that they think they have, or maybe they've misjudged and maybe spoke about something in the wrong way. You know, everybody's experiences with the Fae are going to be different, and you can never completely say is somebody wrong in what they're doing, but you can normally tell the telltale signs when somebody's not being quite truthful, or somebody's just plain right just trying to get attention and make profit from these sort of things. I in no shape or form are here to make profit on my energies or any energies I work with. I do what I do out of soul love and connection, and because it's very important to me. It's been part of me all of my life. And I think it's important to educate people. When instructed, it's okay to do so. So for any of you going into working with the Fae, don't start talking about them and telling loads of different people things about them straight away. They don't have the sort of relationship with you guys yet, the way that mine do with me. Okay, this takes time and takes trust before you can do that. So a lot of your work with them at the beginning will be private and will be secret, and only speak to those that you really trust, like your sisters, brothers, and people that you trust in your family that you know are not judgmental and are not going to be disrespectful. The Fae are very funny about their ways and their beliefs being revealed to people that are not sure of them or know of them. They are very secret creatures, and they are very, very distinct in making you know that you're not to cross that barrier and cross that line. There are just certain things about them that you need to be careful about and not reveal about, and you will come to learn that as you work with them. So if you are somebody that's been around the faith for a long time and you've experienced, just keep building that relationship and keep being the person you are. And at some point in your life, they will open to you to the point where they'll want you to maybe educate or talk or do things like myself. But for those that are new, enjoy the learning and the teaching from the Fae, and don't rush into say what experiences and things you're getting from them. It's all supposed to be secret and between only you and them when you're learning about them. So do not come sitting on channels and things like I'm doing and talking about it, because you're not at that level to be able to do that yet. Never speak, never reveal anything about any type of energy without them inviting you to do so. And that's really important to remember. Remember that the Fae are an amazing category to work with. They are amazing beings. They are very real. They are not mythical and legendary creatures that are from storybooks and told in many laws, and that's it. Even though they are in stories and stuff, they are very real. They are very much here in this realm and in their realm, Avalon, the fairy land, the shining land, whatever you like to call the place. They are very much here, guys, and they do deserve our utmost respect, and they should be highly appreciated because of the energy that they are and the things that they do. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that it's helped you to be more educated on the Fae. I hope that it's helping you to understand them a little bit more, and maybe to feel a little bit more comfortable about maybe working with them in the future. And just remember that just be open hearted, don't be judgmental, and just be willing to learn through you and them being connected. The first step is to invite them to talk to you. You don't have to open and you don't have to dedicate. You can just simply say to them that you find their energy intriguing and you think that they would be beneficial in your working in the future. and in some of your objects and shows and projects and things that you may be doing, and that at this moment in time you're just wanting to learn about them and get to know them, and for them to get to know you. Once you do that and you're done your research and you're studying, you'll start to see the opening and the connection with the Fae become stronger and more open. The more that you acknowledge their energy and acknowledge what they are, the more that you believe in what you're doing and you believe in them, the more you will experience. It is all about being open minded and believing in everything that you're doing, like it is in any sort of spiritual form or energy that we work with. So, from Willow, I hope that you will tune in to my next show next week on Sunday, which will be another series about the Fae, and it will be episode 2. So until then, lots of love, light, and blessings, and thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you all very soon. And I bid you a merry parting from myself, from my fairy folk, and from my lovely, beautiful home. Talk to you all soon, my angels, and thank you for watching. Blessed be. Merry meet, everyone. Willow here. I would like to thank you for watching my new series. I hope that you are enjoying the adventures, whether they are inside or they are outside. I hope that you tune in for the next episode to see what other adventures I have to take you on. I hope that you have enjoyed the show, and thank you for watching. Merry parting, and blessed be.